Chapter 1. An encounter at the club, July 1995. A Chicago evening. A light rain had just passed through, washing away the city's sweltering summer heat. The air, cool and damp, carried the scent of wet earth and asphalt as you breathed it in. It was a relief. Just outside the Loop, the neon signs bled into the slick streets. Following the address Harry Jones had given him, Coleshaw found a nightclub called the Starlight Lounge. It was his first time here. The entrance was modest, set with gleaming glass in a brass frame, the revolving door turning at a lazy pace. He pushed his way inside. A wall of smells hit him first. Air conditioning mixed with perfume and cigarette smoke, the syrupy sweetness of fruit platters, and the sharp tang of liquor. His ears buzzed. A singer was belting out a rock ballad on stage, the sound system vibrating through the floorboards, making the soles of his feet tingle. Cole squinted, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. The place was well-appointed. Darkwood gleamed. The leather couches looked soft and deep, and abstract paintings that were more moody than chaotic hung on the walls. It had some character. He was here to meet Harry Jones and Kevin Miller. The three of them had a meeting to hash out the details of starting a business together. He scanned the room. Shadowy figures dotted the lounge, some smoking, some drinking, some murmuring in low tones, others watching the stage. He didn't see his buddies. Fine, he'd wait. He moved deeper into the club and found an empty table off to the side, not too close to the stage, but not too far either. He ordered a Coke and a fruit platter from a passing waitress. The revolving door spun again. Two people entered. And just like that, every eye in the place, as if pulled by invisible strings, darted toward the entrance. Cole looked up too. Two young women. They couldn't have been more than 16, 17 at the most. They wore simple, well-fitting dresses, nothing flashy, just clean and neat. They were tall and slender and walked with an easy confidence. Their faces were free of makeup, or maybe just a touch, and their hair was pulled back neatly. There was an energy about them, a freshness like crisp green apples still wet with morning dew. They seemed completely out of place amid the smoky, perfumed atmosphere of the club. The two stood at the entrance for a moment, their eyes sweeping the room like searchlights. They spotted the empty table next to Cole's, exchanged a look, and started walking his way. The sharp click-clack of their heels on the marble floor echoed slightly as a faint trail of clean, floral perfume drifted past him. As one of them passed, she gave him a quick sideways glance before sitting down at the adjacent table. They ordered juices. Once seated, they started whispering to each other, their eyes still darting around the room as if they were looking for something or someone. They definitely weren't regulars. They looked more like they were here for the novelty of it, or maybe to try their luck. They hadn't been sitting for more than 2 minutes when a man with slick-back hair and a smarmy smile sidled up to their table, leaning in to say something in a low voice. The older girl's expression hardened, and she shot back a rapid-fire response. The man's smile froze on his face. He mumbled something and walked away, looking dejected. A few moments later, another guy in a loud Hawaiian shirt tried his luck. He got the same treatment, shot down before he could even pull up a chair. The two young women just rolled their eyes and went back to sipping their juice. Cole was watching the singer when, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a waiter approaching the girls' table. He was carrying a massive platter of exotic fruits and a basket overflowing with red and pink roses. He placed the items on their table. "Excuse me, waiter," the older girl said. "We didn't order this." The waiter jerked his chin toward the east side of the room. "It's from Mr. Hughes over there." The two women followed his gaze. In a dark corner, a man with longish hair and a linen shirt, the very picture of an artsy type, was watching them. When he saw them looking, he immediately stood up, a strained smile plastered on his face. Holding his hand with a dramatic flourish, he began to walk toward them, his hips swaying as if he didn't have spine. The artist sat down opposite them, and when he spoke, Cole almost spat out his Coke. His voice was high and thin, with a theatrical drawl that sounded like nails on a chalkboard, sending a shiver down Cole's spine. "Well, hello there, my little doves," he cooed, his voice dripping with condescension. "First time flying in a place like this?" The girls exchanged a look. The older one raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Hughes? Can we help you?" "Tisk, tisk," the man said, wagging a finger in the air. "Such raw talent. You're like two freshly picked flowers, still shimmering with dew. So cute, so marketable. He leaned forward, lowering his voice, but the effeminate, grating tone remained. Listen, darlings, I know people. Directors. Big shot movie producers. And with your look, your presence, your essence, with a little polish, a little packaging, you step in front of a camera and bam, you'll be stars. Huge. Ever thought about giving it a shot? The older girl blinked, her face a mask of wide-eyed innocence. Mr. Hughes, with your flair, your delivery, you look like you belong on the stage yourself. How do you know so many movie directors? I'm just so curious. Could you tell us? Her voice was bright and cheerful, laced with a deliberate, almost mocking curiosity. The man's smile faltered for a second before he recovered, his voice climbing even higher. My dear, you wouldn't understand. Proximity to power is power itself. He gave them what he clearly thought was a charming wink. The younger girl next to him suddenly piped up, perfectly mimicking his high-pitched, theatrical tone. I think, sir, that your intentions are not as pure as you pretend. Are you trying to pull a fast one on two little lambs like us, perhaps? She even dragged out the perhaps with a flourish. The man's face fell. He shot to his feet, flicking his wrist with a burst of indignant elegance. Oomph. A fool cast his pearls before swine. I see I have misjudged the room. Good day. The good day was still echoing in the air as he spun around, and, with his signature hip-swaying gait, practically fled toward the revolving door. A spin of the door, and he was gone. The younger girl made a face at his retreating back and scoffed. Jerk. What a creep. A wolf in sheep's clothing. Does he think we're stupid? Cole, sitting nearby, had heard every word. He had to suppress a laugh. He had just wanted to listen to the band, but the drama at the next table was far more entertaining. He shook his head and picked up his glass. Just as the artsy man was making his dramatic exit, Cole caught a flicker of movement from across the room. He had the feeling a pair of eyes had been on him for a while now. Casually, he turned his head, his gaze sweeping the area. A woman was sitting in a booth against the far wall. She wore a pair of stylish, thin-frame glasses and a tailored business suit. A classic corporate professional. She was looking right at him, her expression open, curious. Their eyes met. A jolt went through him. She looked familiar. Where had he seen her before? He racked his brain, but the memory was foggy, just out of reach. Seeing that she had his attention, the woman smiled slightly, stood up, and walked confidently toward his table. The sound of her heels was a sharp counterpoint to the background music. "Excuse me," she said, stopping beside his table. Her voice was warm, with a hint of uncertainty. "This is a bit forward, but is your name Cole?" Cole was a little taken aback. He nodded. "Yeah, it is. And you are." Chapter 2, Paradise Farm, Peanut Fields. The woman's eyes lit up and her smile widened, a playful, chiding look on her face. "Oh my gosh, it is you. You really don't recognize me? It's Diana Vance. Cole Shaw, you hero. You've completely forgotten." As she spoke, she naturally extended her right hand. "Diana Vance?" Cole shot to his feet, a mix of shock and delight on his face as he quickly took her hand. It was soft and warm. "Wow, it really is you. Diana, it's so good to see you. How many years has it been? You've changed so much. I didn't even recognize you." He was stammering, looking her up and down. The poised, fashionable woman before him was impossible to connect with the blurry image of the shy high school girl in his memory. Diana withdrew her hand and adjusted her glasses, smiling. "You haven't changed a bit. Still got that same energy. The second you stand up, you just radiate this heroic vibe. You know," she continued, "if you hadn't pulled me away from those four punks back then, I don't know where I'd be today. I've never forgotten that." Come on, don't bring that up. That was a lifetime ago. We were just hot-headed kids," Cole said, a little embarrassed. He quickly pulled out a chair for her. Seat. It's amazing to run into an old classmate. We have to catch up. What are you drinking?" "My treat." Diana sat down gracefully opposite him, her posture impeccable. Behind her glasses, her eyes were bright, framed by long lashes that fluttered when she blinked. Her face was a little fuller than he remembered, her skin clear and healthy, and she wore a fashionable shade of mauve lipstick. She had filled out since high school, but it wasn't unflattering. It gave her the confident, mature allure of a successful woman. The way she dressed, her whole demeanor. It was a world away from the Diana Vance with the ponytail, the faded school jacket, and the quiet, timid voice. They were like two different people. His mind flashed back, like an old home movie, to the first time he'd ever seen her. A dusty sunset, a terrified girl, and his own reckless teenage self. 1969. Spring in Illinois was short. 1 minute a warm breeze was on your face, and the next, summer had settled in for the long haul. The school had announced that the entire sophomore class was being sent to Paradise River Farm, south of Chicago, for a mandatory work-study program. 2 weeks of getting acquainted with the dirt. Paradise River Farm had once been a state correctional facility for juveniles. In those days, rehabilitation was a word people threw around a lot. The juvenile inmates were long gone, but the place still had a certain grim atmosphere. Now, city kids like us were bussed in to live and work alongside the farmhands, eating in a communal mess hall, sleeping in long, open bunkhouses, and spending our days hunched over in the fields. It was peanut planting season. The soil was sandy and loose. If you scooped up a handful, it would run like fine sand through your fingers. This land was on a strict rotation. Peanuts 1 year, sweet potatoes the next. Even the dirt had its rules. We arrived with our duffel bags and bedrolls, and before we had even settled in, we were out in the fields the very next morning. Planting peanuts looked simple enough. One person walked ahead, digging holes with a hoe. Quick and rhythmic. The person behind followed with a sack of seeds, dropping 2 or 3 into each hole. A quick kick of dirt to cover it up, and you were done. The rest was just watering, weeding, and waiting for the fall harvest. Compared to the back-breaking work of harvesting wheat, this was a cakewalk. The farm was huge, the fields stretching out to the horizon. The cinder block dorms where we slept were located next to a small, run-down town. Every evening, after work, students from our high school would wander around outside the farm's chain-link fence near the edge of town. We'd gather in small groups, chattering like sparrows returning to their nests. This place was usually dead quiet, with nothing but the wind and the dust. But with the arrival of the students, it came to life. And where there's life, other things are sure to follow. The town had its own share of restless teenage boys. They saw us city kids walking around and were curious. At first, they just watched from a distance. Then, they started coming over in groups, trying to strike up conversations. Their eyes always seemed to land on the girls. Their attempts at flirting were crude and unwelcome. The girls, intimidated and shy, would just turn and run back toward the dorms like frightened rabbits. The local boys, left standing there, would spit on the ground, curse a bit, and then disperse. The air would hang heavy with the smell of dust, sweat, and cheap insults. This went on for a few days, and then things took a turn. One evening, the sun was a sticky red smear on the horizon. A new group showed up outside the fence. 4 of them. They weren't from the local town. They were dressed like greasers, with a swagger in their walk and a predatory look in their eyes. They were clearly hoods from another area who'd heard there were city girls out here and had come to check out the scene. As soon as the girls saw them, a chill ran down their spines. They took off running for the gate. Most of them made it back inside safely. All but one, a skinny girl with glasses, like a bamboo shoot, who was a little slower than the rest. She was just a few steps from the gate when the 4 guys cut her off, surrounding her. They closed in like a cage, snapping shut. "Let go. Let me go." The girl's voice was frantic and high-pitched. She swung her arms wildly, as if trying to push away invisible smoke. Her hair was stuck to her forehead with sweat. You bastards. Get away from me." Her hands brushed against coarse denim, and the smell of stale sweat and cheap cigarettes made her want to gag. Cole had been squatting under an old oak tree just inside the gate, eating a cornbread muffin. The scent of sun-baked peanut vines mixed with the evening breeze when he heard the sharp, panicked cry from outside the fence. It sounded like a cat that had its tail stepped on. He glanced up, brushed the crumbs from his hands, and in 2 quick strides was at the gate, peering out. A hot surge of anger shot through him. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Let her go," he yelled. His voice wasn't loud, but the words hit like stones. He shot out from the gate like a cannonball, heading straight for the circle of boys. The 4 guys surrounding the girl heard him and turned. They saw a skinny high school kid running toward them, though he held himself straight and tall. The leader smirked, barely giving him a second glance. "Well, look what we have here. Some little twig. One of them, with a face like a flattened tomato, sneered at Cole. His voice was a grating rasp. "We've been bored out of our skulls for days, man. Finally found something fun to do with the ladies, and this pipsqueak wants to be a hero." "Who the hell are you?" he continued. "Mind your own damn business. Scram, before you get hurt." A glob of spit landed in the dirt in front of Cole. Cole didn't slow down. He stopped a few feet away from them. His eyes swept over the group, and he said in a low, steady voice, "She's my classmate. You're not touching her." Cole could smell the sour sweat on them, mixed with the greasy scent of cheap tobacco and a palpable, violent excitement. The leader, the tallest of the group, had a scar that cut across his cheek like a purple worm. He let out a sharp, ugly laugh and spat a thick wad of phlegm onto the ground. "Well, damn, we got ourselves a tough guy. My fists have been itching for a fight. Perfect. Let's give him a tune-up. Get him." His voice was like sandpaper on sheet metal, raw and grating. Chapter 3. The whistling of fists. The four guys immediately let go of the girl and formed a tight circle around Cole, closing in on him like magnets snapping onto a nail. The girl with the glasses seized her chance. Like a startled bird, her ponytail flying, she stumbled through the gate, her voice cracking as she screamed, "Help! Somebody help!" Cole didn't even flinch. The moment they surrounded him, he knew he was dealing with experienced brawlers. They moved with a practiced ease. They had him boxed in from all sides. Running was not an option. A fight would mean fists coming from every direction, leaving him no chance to defend himself. To break their formation, he couldn't just charge in. He had to be smart, create a diversion, and pick off the weakest link first. He had been training with his martial arts master for years, never missing a morning or evening practice. If nothing else, his hearing was exceptionally sharp. He could close his eyes and sense a mosquito buzzing within a foot of him, feel the whisper of air as it flew past. Right now, Cole stood slightly angled, his face toward the guy directly in front of the gate, while his peripheral vision tracked the two on his left and right. The one behind him? He couldn't see him, but he could hear him. He could hear the guy's ragged breathing, the soft scuff of his boots on the sandy soil, and he could feel the restless, aggressive energy radiating from him, like the crackling of dry grass about to ignite, prickling the hairs on the back of his neck. He tensed the muscles in his lower back, waiting. Yet, the rest of his body was deceptively loose, as if he'd just woken from a nap, showing no sign of tension. The three in front of him stood with their necks rigid, their eyes bloodshot with anticipation. The leader, Scarface, gave a subtle nod. Almost simultaneously, the three let out a guttural roar and lunged forward, their fists clenched, cutting through the air with a faint whistle. At that exact moment, Cole felt it. Not a sound, but a sensation. The air directly behind him seemed to collapse inward, as if it had been sucked into a vacuum. A small vortex of hot, foul-smelling air, thick with malice, shot straight for the small of his back. Cole ignored the three attackers in front. In a single, fluid motion, he twisted at the waist, his feet gliding, as if on oil, spinning a full 180 degrees. He was now face-to-face with the guy who had tried to ambush him from behind. The guy's foot was just leaving the ground, aiming for a vicious kick to Cole's kidney. He never expected Cole to move like lightning, to suddenly be right in front of him. Cole dropped into a low stance, and his shoulders slammed into the base of the attacker's raised leg. "Get out!" A low growl erupted from Cole's throat as he drove forward with his legs and hips in a single explosive movement. The ambusher, his foot still in mid-air, was launched backward as if flung from an invisible slingshot. Thump! He landed hard on his rear in the sandy dirt, a cloud of dust puffing up around him. He clutched his thigh, howling in pain like a chicken with its neck stepped on. He felt as if his leg had been slammed with a red-hot iron bar. Cole's sudden spin was so fast, it was like a phantom's trick. The three attackers in front, who had thrown their punches with full force, now found themselves swinging at empty air. Their momentum carried them forward, causing them to stumble and nearly crash into each other. The feeling was disorienting, like punching a pillow or stepping off a cliff in the dark. Utterly frustrating. But Cole didn't give them a moment to recover. As the first get out was still hanging in the air, he used the momentum of his spin, his legs coiling like springs, and launched himself into the spot where Scarface had been standing. The guy had just regained his balance when a blur of motion appeared before him. A hand, open-palmed, slapped against the center of his chest. "Get out!" The second shout followed instantly. Cole's hand didn't look like it had much force behind it, just a light press and a push. But a heavy, explosive power, like a floodgate bursting open, surged from his palm into Scarface's chest. Scarface didn't even have time to grunt. His feet left the ground, and he flew backward like a sack of garbage caught in a gale, landing in a heap more than 10 feet away. He curled into a ball, clutching his chest, gasping for air. He felt as if his organs had been violently rearranged, and a sweet, coppery taste filled his mouth. It all happened in the span of a breath. 2 shouts of "Get out!" and 2 guys were on the ground. One was rolling around, clutching his leg. The other was clutching his chest, his eyes rolling back. The remaining 2, one on each side, were frozen in shock, their eyes wide and bloodshot. This wasn't a high school kid. This was a demon. Panic seized them. They forgot every move they knew. Only one thought remained in their minds: grab him. If they could just get their hands on him, they could wrestle him to the ground and beat him senseless. Art, with a unified, desperate cry, they charged at Cole, their eyes red with fury, their arms outstretched to tackle him. They moved as if they wanted to crush him, bones and all. Cole dropped low, his body twisting like a slippery fish. He shot through the gap between their lunging bodies. The 2 punks had charged with so much force they couldn't stop. Thud! Their heads nearly cracked together. Stars exploded behind their eyes, and their ears rang as if filled with 100 cicadas. Missing their target only made them more desperate. The one on the left reached behind his back. Shing! He pulled out a gleaming switchblade. The one on the right did the same. The blades glinted in the dying sunlight like the fangs of a snake. "Aleph! ING kill you!" they screamed, clutching their knives and lunging at Cole again. The blades sliced through the air, aimed at his stomach and ribs. Cole's eyes narrowed. He didn't retreat. He advanced. He sidestepped the blade from the left, the cold steel whispering past his sweat-soaked shirt. At the same time, his right hand shot out like a viper and clamped down on the other guy's wrist. The wrist was slick with sweat. "Let go!" Cole snarled, his arm muscles bulging. His fingers dug in like steel clamps. Damn it! The guy felt a searing pain, as if his wrist bones were being crushed. His fingers went numb, and, with a clatter, the switchblade fell to the sandy ground, kicking up a small puff of dust. At that very moment, the farm's gate erupted. "Grab your tools. Let's get him. Cole, hold on. Charge." Whoosh! A flood of high school boys poured out of the gate, brandishing shovels, pickaxes, and even firewood from the kitchen, all of them yelling at the top of their lungs. They looked like an army ready to storm a castle. The dust kicked up by dozens of running feet hung in the air, thick with the smell of sweat, dirt, and a collective, righteous fury. The 2 guys on the ground saw the mob and nearly fainted from fear. Forgetting their pain, they scrambled to their feet and ran for their lives, disappearing into the twilight. Chapter 4. 2 different people. The 2 guys with the knives saw their friends run, then looked at the approaching horde of students armed with farm tools. Their faces went pale. The knives in their hands suddenly felt like hot coals. They exchanged a panicked glance, dropped their weapons, and took off, running faster than rabbits, vanishing into the growing darkness. A few stray barks from a distant dog provided a surreal soundtrack to the end of the brief, chaotic brawl. The fight had come and gone in a flash. All that was left were a few scuff marks in the dirt and a lone, abandoned switchblade stuck in the ground. The girl who had been rescued, Diana Vance, finally felt her strength give way. She leaned against the gatepost, her legs still trembling. The initial fear had subsided, replaced by a hot, rushing feeling in her chest. She looked at Cole, her eyes shining, and ran over to him, grabbing his wrist. His wrist was warm and slick with sweat, but hard as steel. Thank you," she stammered, her face flushed. "My name is Diana Vance. I live over by the university, in the faculty housing. I'm in homeroom 1. Her fingers were as cold as ice, and they trembled slightly. What's your name? I'll remember you forever." Her palm was clammy. Cole felt a little awkward and tried to pull his wrist away, but she held on tight. He looked away, his gaze fixed on a knife in the dirt. "Don't worry about it," he mumbled. It was the right thing to do. The heat from the sandy soil was still rising, and the back of his neck was damp with sweat. "The name's Cole Shaw. Homeroom 5C, he said, finally turning to get a good look at the girl he had just saved. She was thin, with a pale, sallow complexion. Behind her glasses, her eyes were startlingly bright and wet, like dark river stones just washed by the rain. They seemed to hold a world of emotion. Right now, along with the lingering terror, there was something else in them, something hot and intense that made him feel a little cornered. When his gaze met hers, Diana flinched as if she'd been burned. She quickly let go of his wrist, her face turning an even deeper shade of red. She looked down, wishing she could bury herself in the sand, leaving only the tips of her red ears visible. Cole felt his own face flush. He turned and started walking back into the compound. In an instant, the group of boys who had charged out now surrounded him like a security detail. Vince Williams from 2B, who was always the loudest, stared at Cole with wide eyes, as if he were looking at a statue of a Greek god. "Cole, that was awesome. Freaking awesome," he kept repeating. The crowd of boys swarmed around Cole, noisily heading back toward the dorms. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, dirt, and the unique, boisterous energy of teenage boys. Diana didn't follow. She stood at the gate, her eyes glued to Cole's back, a look of pure reverence on her face. A group of girls came over to comfort her, patting her back and speaking in soothing tones. Their eyes, too, kept darting over to Cole, shining with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. As for Cole, surrounded by his peers, he walked with his neck straight and his chest puffed out, every step taking him back to the dorm. The setting sun stretched his shadow long behind him, making him look like a hero straight out of a comic book, fresh from victory. But the tips of his ears were still a little red, and a thought nagged at him. Did those two get out sound kind of dumb? A little too much like I was shooing away ducks. Back at school, life returned to normal. But the 10-minute breaks between classes were never quite the same. Cole would be standing outside his classroom, trying to get some fresh air, when a quiet, hesitant voice would sound from behind him. "See Cole Shaw?" He'd turn around, and there would be Diana Vance, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt, her face still a little flushed. She would be holding a textbook, as if she had a question, but it was clear she was just looking for an excuse to talk to him. One conversation led to another, and soon they were talking regularly. Cole learned that this quiet girl with glasses, who looked like a strong wind could blow her over, was a force to be reckoned with over a 64-square board. She was a chess prodigy. She had taken second place in the Chicago City Championships. Nationally, she was a recognized player. She was a big deal. Listening to her talk about it, Cole imagined the small wooden pieces battling it out on the board, a world away from the dusty brawl on the farm. He found it both amusing and fascinating. Inside that small, slender frame was the mind of a fierce competitor, a strategist who thrived on intellectual combat. Cole Shaw. The voice was crisp, carrying a familiar hint of shyness, but layered with something new, something more confident. Cole snapped back to the present, feeling as if he'd been yanked from a warm, hazy memory filled with the scent of peanut vines and sweat. Before him was a sleek office desk, a computer monitor casting a soft glow. Diana Vance was standing beside his desk, holding a small, stiff card out to him. Her glasses reflected the overhead lights, hiding her eyes. But her voice was like a key, turning in a long unlocked box. "Here, my business card," she said. Her voice was still gentle, like a feather's touch, but the tremor from their school days was gone. Diana smiled, sitting across from him. Cole quickly took the card with both hands and then fumbled for his own wallet, handing her his card in the same respectful manner. Diana glanced at it. "Seaway International, Trade Division 2? You're an international trade? How very modern of you." Cole looked at Diana's card. "Vanguard Entertainment and Sports Group, General Manager? Wow, you've got a pretty big operation going on." "Yep. Culture, entertainment, sports, we dabble in anything that seems interesting," Diana replied candidly. Cole grinned, leaning forward. "Old friend, you've been climbing the ladder at lightning speed. Took a rocket ship, did you? But I have to say," he said, drawing out the words and looking her up and down, "today's outfit doesn't exactly scream general manager." Diana raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what should a general manager look like?" Cole immediately sat up straight, puffed out his chest, and lowered his voice into a stuffy, formal tone. It should be like this: a power suit, hair so stiff a fly would slip off it, sitting there like a statue with zero expression on their face. Diana burst out laughing. So, when I see an old classmate, my savior, no less, I'm supposed to put on a stone face? I'd be a robot. How exhausting would that be? Now, that's more like it. Cole slapped the table. That sounds like the Diana Vance I know. Full of fire. Diana gave him a playful glare. And you tell me, what kind of GM only talks in corporate jargon and forgets how to be a person? They wouldn't last a week. Cole's smile faded as he grew more serious. All right, old friend. No more joking around. Let's be serious. The second half of senior year. It was like you just vanished. A flicker of regret crossed Diana's face. Yeah, back then, there was a national tournament. I was pulled out of school without even having time to say goodbye. The city's chess team basically locked me in a training facility. After the tournament, I got a full scholarship to college. From then on, I was playing for the national team, flying all over the world. Chapter 5. A sudden chill. She paused, looking at Cole, her voice softening. To be honest, our national team wasn't that strong back then. We never made any big waves. After I retired, I was assigned to this company. It's been a long road since then, a lot of stumbling and scraping my way up, but I finally made it to this position. Cole nodded. Just by looking at you, I can tell you've been through a lot more than I have. Life's treating you well, I assume? You must be married by now. Married a long time ago. I have a 13-year-old son. He's a handful. His dad works for the National Sports Council, Diana said casually. She then turned the question back to him. What about you, hero? What's your story? Married, too. A 10-year-old daughter. My wife's an accountant at a manufacturing plant, Cole replied. He gestured toward the club entrance. I was supposed to meet some friends here tonight to talk business. It's crazy that I ran into you instead. Fate, huh? Just then, Cole saw Harry Jones walk in. He quickly said to Diana, Sorry, old friend, my buddy's here. I'll just wave him over. He stood up and waved. Harry, over here. Harry hurried over, looking apologetic. Sorry, Cole. Traffic was a nightmare. His eyes fell on Diana. And this is my high school classmate, Diana Vance. Cole introduced them. Nice to meet you, Ms. Vance. I'm Harry Jones. Harry nodded politely. A pleasure, Mr. Jones. Diana stood up gracefully. You two have business to discuss. I'll come back in a bit. With a nod to both men, she moved to a nearby empty table. Harry sat down and chugged some water from the glass on the table. I asked Kevin Miller to join us to talk about the investment. What's taking him so long? They both glanced toward the entrance, but it was empty. Ring, ring. Harry's cell phone rang. He answered it. Hello. Yeah, it's me. What? Your dad has a bleeding ulcer? Which hospital? You're admitting him now? Okay. Don't worry about us. You take care of things there. Right, we'll reschedule. Cole Shaw is right here with me. Okay. Tell your dad I hope he gets better soon. You take it easy, too. Right, health is everything. Hanging up, Harry met Cole's questioning gaze. Kevin's dad has a bleeding ulcer. He's at the hospital. He's busy, can't make it. We'll have to do this another time. All right, I'll head out then. Let me know when, Cole said, starting to get up. Bang! The heavy door of the nightclub was violently kicked open. An icy gust of wind rushed in, making everyone shiver. The thumping music was abruptly cut short by the brutal interruption. A man with a small head and a hunched posture, flanked by 4 hulking figures, barged in. The chill coming off them was colder than the wind outside. As they passed Cole's table, he felt a cold draft. The group marched straight to a corner booth where 2 pale-faced young women were sitting. The small-headed man stood with his hands on his hips, his voice as sharp as a razor. Well, we've been looking all over for you. You think you can just disappear without a word? The heavens are smiling on me today. Finally caught you too. Let's see you try to run now. The 2 women were trembling like leaves, their eyes wide with terror, fixed on the man. The older one's lips quivered as she spoke. The money, we paid it all back. We don't owe you anything. Paid it back. The man shrieked, spittle flying from his lips. I brought you 2 from some hick town to Chicago. How much money did I spend? How much effort did I put in? I made you. And now you think you could just fly the coop? Not a chance. If you can't cough up $50,000 to show your gratitude, you're not walking out of here in one piece. The older woman was desperate. 50,000? We've earned you over 1 million, easy. And your boss, he wanted to force himself on us. Is there no law in this city? The law. The man sneered. You can't pay your debts. You pay with your bodies. That's the law of the street. Enough talk. Grab them. He barked, waving his hand. His goons lunged like hungry tigers to grab the women. One of the women, in a panic, ducked her head and bit down hard on the hand of the man grabbing her arm. Ow, F. You bitch, you bit me. The man roared in pain, and with a grunt, he swung his fist and smashed it into the woman's face. She let out a muffled cry and crumpled to the floor. Not satisfied, the man raised his foot to kick her. Don't hit Sophia, the other woman screamed, throwing herself over her friend to shield her with her own body. The heavy boots of the thugs rained down on her back and legs with sickening thuds. Cole knew the score. In this part of town, this kind of thing wasn't uncommon. From their brief, venomous exchange, he could tell this was a messy situation with a complicated backstory he wanted no part of. He had no intention of getting involved, but someone else couldn't stand by and watch. Stop it. A clear, sharp voice cut through the commotion like a stone thrown into a muddy pond. Diana Vance was on her feet, and in a few quick strides, she stood between the thugs and the two women. There was no fear on her face, only a fiery determination in her eyes. Grown men beating up women in public? Has this city completely lost its mind? The thugs, who had been enjoying themselves, stopped and turned their vicious glares on Diana. The small-headed man tilted his head, his eyes like a snake's. What's this? You want to be a hero? Fine. 50 grand. Put on the table, and you can take them. No money? Then get the hell out of my way and let me do my business. He nodded to his men, and they once again grabbed the women and started dragging them away. Diana refused to move. She stretched out her arms, blocking their path. This is kidnapping. It's lawless. I'm not letting it happen. The man finally lost his temper, his words foul. Don't you ing mess with me. He raised his hand and swung it, aiming a slap at Diana's face. Get out of the way. You asking for it. As the hand was about to connect with Diana's face, the last thread of Cole's patience snapped. He shot up from his seat. His hand moved like a blur, reaching up to intercept and guide the man's arm. The powerful slap, as if sliding on ice, slipped past Diana's cheek and hit nothing but air. It was as if the man had been trying to swat an invisible fly. The man's beady eyes under his cheap hat widened in surprise. Then, a slow, malicious grin spread across his face. Another hero. Boys, he cackled. Let's teach him a lesson. Show him what happens when you mess with the black dragons. The four hulking men let go of the two women, who crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. Four dark shapes moved to surround Cole, who now stood near the entrance. The one closest to Cole threw a punch, a swift, vicious blow whistling through the air. But Cole? He was gone. The space where he stood was empty. It was as if he had vanished in a thin air. A pained grunt echoed through the room. Everyone's eyes darted to the source of the sound, just in time to see another one of the thugs clutching his chest, his face contorted in agony as he collapsed to his knees. Chapter 6. The Terror of the Iron Ruler, and there, standing in front of the fallen man, was Cole. How'd he get there? Nobody knew. Cole didn't stop. Another flicker of movement. The second thug barely registered a shadow before a sharp, brutal impact struck his ribs. It wasn't a punch. It was an elbow. It felt like a red-hot poker had been driven into his side. God! The thug's eyes bulged. His stomach churned violently, and the cheap whiskey and half-digested dinner he'd just consumed came spewing out, drenching the small-headed leader from head to toe. A hot, sticky, foul-smelling mess of yellow, white, and green. Oh, God! The leader yelped, wiping his face. Before he could even curse, the third thug let out a muffled groan and sat down hard on the floor like a sack of potatoes, clutching his stomach and twitching. The club's faint, decadent music had long been drowned out by the series of dull thuds and pained cries. The air was thick with the smell of blood and the sour stench of vomit. The small-headed man's bravado completely evaporated. His face was paler than a ghost. "Boss! Boss!" he shrieked in a strangled voice, scrambling toward the door on his hands and knees. "This guy's a monster. He's too much for us. We can't handle him." He had barely reached the doorway when the fourth thug's grunt followed him. Cole moved like a wisp of black smoke, weaving between the downed men. Everywhere he passed, he left a trail of moans and whimpers. In the corner, the two rescued women stared, their jaws hanging open. They had never seen anything like it in their lives. One man, taking down a group of thugs built like brick walls. It was like something out of a kung fu movie. Their eyes were glued to Cole, afraid to even blink. Diana quickly ran over and helped the two stunned women to their feet, pulling them behind her protectively. "It's okay. It's okay," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but she tried to keep it steady. "He's my classmate. A real hero. These scumbags are no match for him. I'll get you out of here, away from this hellhole." Her words were barely out of her mouth. Crash. Crash. The club's two large revolving doors were kicked in from the outside with brutal force. The hinges groaned in protest. For more thugs, wielding large, gleaming machetes, swarmed in, flanking a middle-aged man in a black silk jacket. They moved with a deadly purpose. So, they had a whole crew waiting outside. Hearing their leaders' pig-like squeals, they had all charged in. The club was now empty. The bouncers? The customers? They had all scattered like rats. The place that had been filled with smoke and noise was now eerily silent. All that remained were the heavy breathing and footsteps of the newcomers, and the groans of the men on the floor, which echoed in the empty space, making the scene even more chilling. The lingering smell of cheap perfume and stale liquor seemed to freeze in the sudden, dead silence. The middle-aged man walked slowly toward Cole. His eyelids were heavy as he looked Cole up and down, as if appraising a piece of old furniture. "What crew are you with?" he asked, his voice low and laced with ice. "You got the nerve to mess with the Black Dragons? You got a death wish?" Cole didn't even bother to look up. A corner of his mouth twitched. "Black Dragons," he said, his voice light, almost dismissive but sharp as a knife. "Never heard of him." The small-headed man, still covered in filth, jumped to his feet. "He's asking for it. He's dead. Boys, waste him." One of the thugs responded instantly, swinging his machete. The polished blade cut through the air with a whistle, aimed straight for Cole's head. It was fast. It was brutal. Cole didn't retreat. He moved forward to meet the attack. No one saw how his hands moved. One moment they were empty, the next he was holding a dark, foot-long steel ruler. It looked plain and unassuming. Crack! A sharp, clean sound, like a frozen tree branch snapping underfoot. The thug with the machete froze, his eyes bulging, his mouth wide open in a silent scream. His wrist hung at an unnatural angle. The machete clattered to the floor, nearly chopping off his own toes. The pain was excruciating. His wrist bones felt like they'd been crushed into powder. The other three men with machetes hadn't even processed what had happened. Cole flicked his wrist, and the steel ruler moved again. Crack! Another sharp sound. Same result. The second thug's wrist was shattered, his machete falling to the ground. The sound was cleaner and quicker than a DJ scratch. By the time the clatter of the first machete hit everyone's ears, the second was already on its way down. The third thug was quicker to react. His eyes were bloodshot. With a roar, he swung his machete. Cole sidestepped, the blade slicing past his shirt, a whisper of cold air on his skin. The thug twisted his wrist, the blade arcing upward in a vicious, dishonorable strike aimed at Cole's groin. But as he twisted his wrist, Cole, while stepping back, used the steel ruler to slide along the blade, guiding it. The machete, as if pulled by a magnet, was deflected to Cole's side. Cole shifted his feet, and in a ghostly movement he was beside the thug. His wrist snapped, and the steel ruler swung back. The thug was quick. He yanked his knife hand back just in time. The ruler hit empty air. The machete was still in his hand. The thug sneered and swung the machete in a wide, horizontal arc, a blur of white light aimed at cutting Cole in half. Cole leaned back, the tip of the blade ripping through the fabric of his shirt. In that split second, Cole's steel ruler, somehow, struck the thug's elbow. Crack! The third sickening crunch echoed in the silent room. Clatter! The third machete hit the floor. The thug's arm hung limp like a wet noodle. His face was white with pain, sweat beading on his forehead. The calm expression on the middle-aged man's face finally shattered. He stood frozen, like a clay statue. Only one man with a machete was left standing. His legs were shaking uncontrollably. He looked at his groaning friends on the floor, at the deadly steel ruler in Cole's hand, and then at the machete he was holding. It felt as useless as a stick. I'll kill you, he screamed, trying to muster some courage. He swung his arm and hurled the machete at Cole like a javelin. Then, he turned and ran for his life. He was faster than a jackrabbit, but the machete? It was wildly off target, flying straight toward the small-headed man who had just managed to wipe his face clean. "Oh my God!" The man screamed in terror, scrambling out of the way of the flying weapon. He stumbled and fell, then crawled toward the door, losing a shoe in his haste. The middle-aged man saw the chaos, and his heart sank. He knew he had lost. This was a disaster. He shot Cole a venomous look and hissed through his teeth, "You son of a bitch! You just wait. This isn't over." With that threat, he abandoned his fallen men and fled, moving even faster than his small-headed underling. The men on the floor, clutching their shattered wrists and bruised ribs, saw their boss run. Forgetting their pain, they scrambled to their feet, helping each other up, and stumbled out of the club, crying and cursing. The ones who weren't injured were already long gone. Outside, a car engine roared to life, and the screech of tires on pavement cut through the night. Then silence. They were gone, likely headed for the nearest emergency room. The doctors and nurses at Chicago General were in for a long night of setting shattered bones. Chapter 7. A face-to-face thank you. A dead silence fell over the nightclub once more. The pale lights illuminated a scene of chaos. Overturned tables, spilled drinks, and a foul-smelling pile of vomit. Diana and the two young women were as white as sheets. The sight of those flashing blades had made their hearts pound in their chests. They were drenched in a cold sweat, their clothes sticking to their backs. It wasn't until the last figure disappeared through the door that their racing hearts finally settled back into place, the thudding in their chests almost painful. The two women, trembling like fawns, stumbled over to Cole, their lips quivering, unable to form coherent words. "Thank you, our hero. You saved us." Cole waved a hand dismissively, not looking at them. He spoke directly to Diana, his voice urgent and firm. "You can't stay here. Get them out of here, find a safe place, and take them home." He pointed toward the street. "My friend and I have to go too. And remember," he said, his eyes locking with Diana's, "watch your tail. If anyone follows you, head for a crowded place like a busy market and lose them before you go home. Don't go straight there." "Got it. I understand." Diana nodded firmly and turned to the two women. "Come on, let's go." She didn't dare go to her own car parked down the street. Instead, she flagged down a passing taxi. The three of them piled in, and the car sped off, disappearing into the river of nighttime traffic. Cole and Harry, who had been watching from a dark corner, exchanged a look, nodded, and each hailed a cab of their own, quickly vanishing into the blur of lights and cars outside the loop. In the dimly lit, smoke-filled backrooms of Chicago's bars, whispers began to circulate. A mysterious figure in black had appeared in the city. Always masked, moving like a shadow, he seemed to show up wherever trouble was brewing with the city's lowlifes. If he saw someone bullying others, especially women, he wouldn't hesitate. No matter the odds, he would step in, armed with a strange, heavy steel ruler. He would leave a trail of moaning thugs in his wake. He seemed to have a particular dislike for a gang called the Black Dragons, showing them no mercy. Before long, he had a name, the Iron Ruler. He became the stuff of nightmares for the city's street punks. The criminal element in that part of the city did quiet down. Some of the smaller gangs were too afraid to go out alone, only venturing out in groups, armed and ready for a fight. But then, a strange thing happened. Several other Iron Rulers started appearing on the streets. When Cole heard about the copycats, he decided to hang up his vigilante mantle. But he would still hear whispers now and then about the Iron Ruler being spotted somewhere in the city. A few days later, Diana called. "Cole." Her voice on the other end was bright and cheerful. "Those two women you saved, they're models. I put them up in the company's guest apartment, and we talked all night. The company is going to sign them." Cole held the phone, the receiver warm against his ear. "That's great. As long as they're safe and have a future, I guess I did some good." "More than good. You were a huge help." Diana's voice grew louder. For the past 6 months, my company has been trying to break into the modeling industry. The night I ran into you, I was there to meet a relative to discuss that very thing. What a coincidence, right? I saw those girls in trouble, and you were right there. I thought perfect timing. So I stepped in. She paused, and he could hear her take a sip of water. And just as I expected, you were worried I'd get hurt, so you jumped in. Once they were safe, I was able to get the real story from them. All the struggles, the training, everything. Because we saved them, and we're a legitimate, well-known company, the Black Dragons won't dare to cause any more trouble. The girls feel safe, so they've agreed to stay with us. Cole listened, a small smile playing on his lips. If they're happy, then I have nothing to worry about. Just pass on a message for me. Tell them to work hard, make a name for themselves, bring glory to your company, and build a good future. That'll be thanks enough for me. Wow, I really have to thank you, my hero. Diana laughed. You show up at the perfect moment, solve a problem for my company, and save 2 young women for terrible fate. They can't stop talking about you. They want to thank you in person, get on their knees, and bow to their savior. No, don't do that. Cole quickly interjected, his tone firm. Tell them this. A meeting? Fine. When? When they've made a real name for themselves in the modeling world. When they're so successful, they blind people with their brilliance. Until then, don't even mention a meeting. It was a strange request. Diana laughed on the other end of the line. Ah, Cole Shaw, you're one of a kind. You do a good deed and expect nothing in return. You're a true gentleman. For that alone, Diana Vance is proud to call you her friend. 6 months later, Diana invited Cole to a get-together. When Cole walked in, Diana and the 2 young women stood up in unison, looking as fresh and vibrant as a spring morning. Well, look who it is. Our hero, right on time, Diana said with a smile, motioning for him to sit. The 2 women's eyes were shining like bright lights, fixed on him. Cole had barely sat down when they rushed over to him and bowed deeply 3 times, their foreheads nearly touching the coffee table. Cole was taken aback. He turned to Diana, his eyes asking, what is this all about? Diana slapped the table. Oh, my hero, your memory is so short. 6 months ago, in a nightclub, 2 young women were cornered by the Black Dragons, who swooped in like a superhero. You've forgotten your damsels in distress. Cole slapped his own forehead. Oh, those 2 unlucky girls. Hearing that he remembered them, the 2 women were overjoyed. Our savior, big brother. They both rushed forward, one throwing her arms around his neck, the other pressing her cheek against his, a cloud of fragrant warmth enveloping him. Cole froze, his neck stiff, unsure where to put his hands. He shot a desperate look at Diana. Help me. Diana watched the scene with amusement for a long moment before finally speaking. All right, you 2 wild things. Can't you see your big brother is an old-fashioned kind of guy? He can't handle all this affection. Let him go, let him go. The 2 women, blushing, finally released him and sat down on either side of him, their eyes still glued to his face. Diana pointed to them. Let me formally introduce you. The taller one is Sophia Quinn, the captain of our modeling team. This is Talia Hayes, the co-captain. They're the stars of our company now. Cole finally got a good look at them. Sophia had a delicate, pale face with bright, intelligent dark eyes. She held herself with a poised elegance, like a young, graceful bamboo shoot. Talia had curly hair, vibrant red lips, and flawless skin. She was tall and exuded a captivating energy. Compared to the terrified girls from 6 months ago, they were completely transformed, radiating youth and confidence. Chapter 8. An Unwanted Family, see? Diana said, taking a sip of her wine. Ever since you rescued them, these 2 have been obsessed. They talk about you constantly. I told them what you said, no meeting until they've achieved something. And boy, did that light a fire under them. They train like their lives depended on it. In just 6 months, they've built our modeling team from the ground up. Before their first big show, they insisted on seeing their hero. I couldn't say no, so I tricked you into coming here. Cole cleared his throat and turned to the 2 women. Sophia, Talia, that night, I had no intention of getting involved. It was your boss, Diana, who stepped in first. I was just worried she'd get hurt, so I helped out. He emphasized the words helped out. Ultimately, I did it for Diana. So you 2 need to listen to her, work hard, and make sure her faith in you isn't wasted. Understand? Sophia nodded eagerly. We understand. You're our savior. and Diana is our guide. We'll definitely work hard and make the modeling team a success under her leadership to make you both proud. Talia added, that's right. I'll give it everything I've got to lead the team. I'll make sure they shine on the runway, like a string of firecrackers. We'll bring honor to the company and to the country. Her string of firecrackers metaphor made the corner of Cole's mouth twitch. Cole nodded. Modeling is a young person's game. You're at your peak now, physically and mentally. You're in good hands with Diana, so work hard. Your goal, he paused, should be to take this team international, to make the whole world know your names. Do you have the guts for that? They both nodded in unison, their eyes shining with ambition. Yes. Diana looked at Cole, a new expression in her eyes. Wow, hero. You're not just about brawn, you've got the brains too. Your talk of going international has my heart racing. All right, I'll take your advice. We'll polish the team some more, and then we'll take the world by storm. I'm seeing you in a whole new light. That evening, the conversation flowed easily. Cole told a few funny stories about the modeling world, making the three of them laugh. His relaxed demeanor, combined with his natural heroism, made Diana and the two young models genuinely want to be his friends. But as they were about to leave, a problem arose. Sophia grabbed Cole's arm. Brother, her voice was clear and sweet. You saved our lives. We have nothing to give you in return, so I want to adopt you as my real brother. From now on, I'll take care of you. Cole's skin crawled. No. I already have a sister, and she's more than enough for me to handle. I can't afford another one. Before he could finish, Talia grabbed his other arm. Brother, I never had a brother growing up. I want to adopt you too. You'll be my real brother. Her voice was thick with emotion. Cole's heart sank. This was going to be more trouble than the Black Dragons. He said firmly, no, absolutely not. Talia's face fell. Her knees buckled, and with a thud, she knelt on the floor, blocking the doorway. Sophia saw this and immediately knelt beside her. Brother, I never had a brother either. If you don't accept us, we'll kneel here until we die. Her voice was choked with tears, her eyes welling up. Cole's head was spinning. What was he supposed to do? He shot a desperate look at Diana. Say something. Help me out. And Diana? She was intently studying the pattern on her wine glass, as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. 10 minutes passed. The air was thick with tension. Cole felt incredibly awkward under the gaze of 4 tear-filled eyes. The sound of their knees on the floor was like a relentless drumbeat. Fine. He gave in. Get up. Okay, I accept, he said, the words tasting like medicine. The two women immediately broke into smiles, their tears forgotten. They jumped up and pushed Cole back down onto the sofa. Then, they knelt side by side in front of him. Our brother, please accept your sister's bow of respect. Thud, thud, thud. They bowed 3 times, their foreheads hitting the floor with solid thumps. The formality of it was more like a business acquisition than a family reunion. Cole quickly reached out to help them up. All right, get up. The moment he touched them, Sophia and Talia sprang up and threw themselves into his arms. Hot tears streamed down his face, mixed with the scent of perfume and sweat. They sobbed like children. I have a brother now. I have a brother. Their cries were muffled, like kittens finding shelter from a storm. Cole could only stand there stiffly, gently patting their backs. The overlapping shadows of the 3 of them cast a strange, multi-limbed creature on the wall in the dim light of the room. His mind was a blank slate, as if a tornado had just swept through. And just like that, 2 beautiful, tearful, and fiercely loyal young women had been thrust into his life. From that day on, Sophia and Talia would invite Cole out to dinner whenever they had a free moment. At least once a month, Diana would sometimes join them. At these dinners, they truly treated Cole like their older brother. They spoke freely, without any reservations, and were physically affectionate without a second thought. Their words, however, became increasingly suggestive, to the point where it sounded like they were offering themselves to him. Cole, however, kept his boundaries clear. No matter how much they teased or flirted, he never crossed the line. The more reserved he was, the bolder they became, their flirtations growing more and more outrageous. Eventually, they started accidentally brushing up against him, testing his limits. But Cole was not a man to be trifled with. His face would darken, his expression turning stony. He would say in a low, firm voice, "If you don't start acting appropriately, I'm leaving. And don't call me again." His stern words finally got through to them. They backed off, their physical provocations ceasing. But the suggestive tone in their conversations remained a constant undercurrent. Without the physical contact, Cole relaxed his guard. He figured he could let them have their fun with words. He even started to notice something. Being around these energetic young women seemed to lift a weight off his shoulders, the heavy burden of the years. He felt more alive, younger, like a withered tree root sprouting new shoots. The feeling wasn't bad at all. One day, the three of them were supposed to meet for dinner. Cole got stuck in traffic and arrived a few minutes late. When he walked in, he found Sophia and Talia in the middle of a heated argument, their faces flushed with anger. Diana sat between them, looking worried, wringing her slender hands and shaking her head. When Diana saw Cole, she looked relieved. "Oh, my hero, you're finally here. You have to listen to this and tell us what to do." Cole pulled up a chair. "What happened? Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." Sophia spoke first, the words tumbling out of her mouth like machine gun fire. "Brother, it's like this. 2 weeks ago, I went to a modeling industry conference and met a lot of people. 2 of them were from the Azure Wave team. They're really talented, and we hit it off. The other day, they called and said they want to jump ship and join us. But they're afraid of people finding out, so they insisted we meet them at a hotel in the suburbs to discuss the details." Diana chimed in, her brow furrowed. "I checked it out. That place is practically in the next state. And I've heard the area is sketchy. I can't let them go alone. I told them to take a few more people with them, for safety." Chapter 9. A dangerous dinner. Talia slapped the table. "But they won't agree. They insist that only Sophia and I go. Not one person more. Otherwise, the deal's off." Cole let out a short, humorless laugh and lit a cigarette. "I get it. Diana is afraid it's a trap and won't let you go. And you two are afraid of letting a golden opportunity slip away, so you're determined to go. Am I right?" Diana nodded vigorously. "Hero, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it." Cole tapped the ash from his cigarette and looked at Diana. "Diana, be honest. Do you want to let this opportunity go?" Diana sighed, deflating like a punctured tire. "Want to? Who wouldn't want to seize an opportunity? But my heart is in my throat. I'm terrified it's a trap. Easy to walk into, but not so easy to walk out of. That's why I wanted to have this dinner, to get your advice on what to do." Cole stubbed out his cigarette and took a slow, deliberate sip of his tea. "This isn't that hard. I'll pretend to be your driver and your agent's assistant. I'll go with the 2 of you. Problem solved." His words made the 3 women's eyes light up. Sophia immediately pulled out her phone. "It's settled then. I'll call them back right now." Talia rubbed her hands together excitedly. 3 days from now. We'll meet in 3 days. 3 days later, the weather was perfect, clear skies and a gentle breeze. Cole borrowed a Toyota SUV from Vanguard's company garage and filled the tank. With Sophia and Talia, both dressed to impress, in the car, he drove out to the remote suburban hotel with the dubious name, The Dream Come True. When they arrived, 2 young women were waiting outside, standing next to a man in a suit with a practiced, phony smile on his face. Sophia whispered that he was the agent, Frank Jensen. Jensen saw them get out of the car and rushed over, his face beaming with an overly enthusiastic smile. "Ah, Miss Quinn, Miss Hayes, I'm so glad you could make it. It was a long drive, I'm sure. And this is—" His eyes, like searchlights, landed on Cole. "The driver and an assistant to our agent, Mr. Clark," Cole said preemptively, his voice flat, his expression neutral, conveying an air of, "I'm just the help." He was dressed plainly in a jacket and work pants, looking every bit the part. Jensen's eyes scanned Cole for a moment, and seeing nothing of note, he laughed. "Ah, of course. Welcome, welcome. Please come inside." They were led into a small conference room in the hotel. The air conditioner hummed loudly, circulating a musty, stale smell mixed with cheap, cloying air freshener. The moment they walked in, Cole's eyes narrowed. He noticed that the 2 talented models were tense, their eyes constantly darting to Jensen, their every move seeming to ask for his approval. They were like 2 caged birds completely under his control. Something was wrong. A warning bell went off in his head. They sat down. Cole had already instructed Sophia and Talia to only drink the bottled water they had brought with them. As for himself, he pulled out a large, battered metal thermos and slowly poured himself a cup of tea. His message was clear: I'm just a bystander, here to drink my tea. The negotiations began. Sophia and Talia did the talking, while Jensen smiled and agreed to everything. The conversation was so smooth it felt rehearsed. Jensen barely haggled, accepting all of their terms. He only asked for a higher salary tier for his models, which Sophia, after a quick call with Diana, agreed to. They drew up the contracts, and within half an hour, everything was signed. Jensen rubbed his hands together gleefully. Well, I never expected things to go so smoothly. This is wonderful. A cause for celebration. I insist dinner's on me. There's a restaurant right next door with some great local food. What do you say? You have to let me treat you. Sophia, not wanting to be indebted to him, quickly waved her hand, a polite smile on her face. Mr. Jensen, please. There are models now. It should be our treat. I saw a place across the street, the Welcoming Arms, that looked nice. Let's host a celebratory dinner for you and the two young ladies. You must join us. Jensen's smile widened. He barely hesitated. Well, in that case, it would be rude to refuse. Ms. Quinn, Ms. Hayes, you are too kind. As they were leaving the hotel, Cole casually glanced at the security guard's booth. A burly guard in a uniform was leaning back in his chair, a cigarette dangling from his lips. As their group passed, the guard's eyes met Jensen's, and he gave a quick, almost imperceptible nod. Cole's hand, holding the thermos, paused for a fraction of a second. The light glinted off the water in his cup. Okay, he thought. I get it. This dinner was a trap. It reeked of a setup. The Welcoming Arms restaurant across the street was a slight improvement over the hotel. They ordered a large meal. Jensen was especially cheerful, ordering a bottle of expensive whiskey. We must celebrate. A toast is in order. Cole immediately raised his large thermos. Mr. Jensen, I appreciate the offer, but I have to drive. Now drop for me. I'll have to let these two ladies drink for me. They can hold their liquor. Hearing the word drink, Sophia and Talia knew it was a signal from their brother. Eat and drink as much as you want. So, they relaxed and joined in the toasting and chatter with the other two models and Jensen. As for Cole, he ate his food quietly, not saying much. But his eyes were sharp. His chopsticks, as if with a mind of their own, always went for the dishes that Jensen had just served himself from. If Jensen took a piece of Kung Pao chicken, Cole would follow with a bite of peanuts from the same dish. If Jensen had a spoonful of duck soup, Cole would eat a piece of duck skin. It was as if Jensen was his personal food taster. He sipped his tea slowly, watching Jensen with the detached amusement of someone watching a play. The dinner lasted for 2 hours. The whiskey bottle was empty, and the plates were mostly cleared. Jensen's face was flushed, and he was talking animatedly. Sophia and Talia were also a little flushed. They stood up to leave. Mr. Jensen, it's getting late. We have to head back. We have work in the morning. Jensen and the two models walked them to their SUV, shaking their hands and exchanging pleasantries like a pleasure doing business with you. And let's stay in touch. Cole started the engine. Just before pulling away, he glanced in the rearview mirror. Jensen, who had been all smiles just a moment before, was now on his phone, his face grim, speaking rapidly. Behind them, at a distance, a black Hummer had silently pulled out and was following them like a dark, menacing coffin. And behind the Hummer, 3 more Toyota SUVs had joined the procession, sticking to their tail. Sophia, oblivious to the cars behind them, was still basking in the success of the meeting. She leaned back at her seat and closed her eyes. See, big brother, we were worried for nothing. They really wanted to make a deal. It went so smoothly. I was nervous for no reason. Chapter 10. Blades and laughter. Cole's eyes were fixed on the road, his voice chillingly calm. Don't celebrate just yet. I have a feeling the trouble is just beginning. Either you two are about to feel unwell, or this car is about to break down. Talia, in the back seat, let out a laugh, a mix of tipsiness and teasing. Oh, come on, brother. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? I didn't see anything wrong. Why are you so sure something's going to happen? I think. She drew out her words, her tone playful and suggestive. You're just hoping we run into a little trouble on the way back, so you can play the hero and comfort us. Sophia turned around, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Exactly. If our big brother wants to save the day, I'll be sure to play my part. I'm ready for any kind of comforting he wants to offer. The words were barely out of her mouth. Sputter, clank. Just as Cole was about to step on the gas, the SUV shuddered violently. The engine let out a few dry, wheezing coughs like an old man with asthma, and then died completely. The car's speed dropped rapidly. To make matters worse, they were in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but barren hills and sparse woods on either side of the road. Not a soul in sight. See? What did I tell you? Cole's voice was sharp and hard. Look behind you. Those 4 vehicles have been tailing us the whole time. Stop fooling around. Get ready to run. Before they had left, Cole had insisted they change into tracksuits and running shoes. Now, the 2 women were instantly sober. Their faces went pale as they whipped around to look. The 4 vehicles behind them, like a pack of sharks that had scented blood, were accelerating, closing in fast. The low growl of their engines was like the roar of a predator, the dust they kicked up like a monster's breath. All thoughts of teasing vanished. Talia and Sophia frantically checked their shoelaces, tightened the cuffs of their tracksuits, and quickly tied their hair back. Their bodies were tense, their eyes fixed on Cole, waiting for his command. The SUV, now a useless hunk of metal, was stalled in the middle of the road. The 4 vehicles behind them screeched to a halt, boxing them in. The car doors flew open. Cole reached under his seat and pulled out a 3-foot-long, dark steel ruler. It was heavy, with sharp, unforgiving edges that glinted in the fading light. He barked out an order. Lock the doors. Stay in the car. No matter what you see or hear, don't get out, even if they break every bone in your body. With that, he kicked open his door and stepped out, his tall frame silhouetted against the harsh afternoon sun. The door locked behind him. Inside the car, Talia and Sophia covered their mouths, their eyes wide with terror as they watched their brother. Cole stood alone, his back to them, the steel ruler held loosely at his side, pointing toward the ground. In front of him, a dozen menacing thugs, armed with gleaming machetes, had formed a circle, 10 blades against 1 steel ruler. It was like a pack of hungry wolves surrounding a lone, silent tiger. The air was thick with the smell of burning rubber, dust, and the metallic tang of sweat and steel, a promise of violence. The roadside weeds swayed in the hot, uneasy breeze. The sun hung high in the sky, a cold, indifferent witness. 10 men, wielding large machetes, charged forward. 6 of them swarmed Cole, their blades a whirlwind of deadly motion. The other 4, their faces grim, headed for the stalled SUV. Cole didn't hesitate. In an instant, with 2 dull thuds, 2 of the men were on the ground. He moved like a blur, slipping through a gap in the remaining 4 attackers and darting toward the group heading for the car. Seeing him coming, the 4 turned to meet him, their blades swinging wildly. The result, clang, 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 clang. The sound of metal hitting the pavement was like a sudden hailstorm. All 4 machetes were on the ground. The 4 men were hopping on 1 foot, clutching their wrists, hissing in pain. In the time it took to take a sip of water, the other 6 attackers had met the same fate. Their blades were scattered on the ground, and they were all clutching their wrists, shoulders, or elbows, their cries of pain a symphony of agony. Cole walked over and, with lightning speed, jabbed his fingers into the ribs of several of the men. Ha ha ha! Hee hee! Ho ho ho! As if possessed, all 10 men squatted on the ground and burst into uncontrollable laughter. Tears and snot streamed down their faces, their bodies convulsing, but they couldn't stop. The scene was both bizarre and comical. Cole ignored the laughing hyenas and ran toward the vehicles that had been following them. The one in front was a Hummer. He yanked open the door. Inside, 3 people were huddled together. Frank Jensen's face was as white as a sheet. "Please spare me. Have mercy," he begged. The 2 models beside him were trembling uncontrollably, too scared to even breathe. Cole quickly got the story out of them. Then, he jabbed his fingers into Jensen's side. Bwah ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Jensen's laughter joined the chorus outside, a grotesque sound that was more crying than laughing. Cole turned to the 2 models. "Do you want to go? Or stay?" "Go. We want to go now. Please," they pleaded, their voices shaking. "All right." Cole nodded and helped them into the Hummer. He drove it back to his own disabled SUV and had Sophia and Talia switch vehicles. As for Jensen and his merry men and the broken-down SUV, he left them there. The Hummer roared to life, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake as it sped back to Chicago. The two models, still under contract, willingly joined Vanguard's modeling team. Frank Jensen and his Azure Wave team disappeared without a trace. The two models eventually decided to return to their hometowns to live a quiet life. Time flew by. The leaves turned from green to yellow, and the cicadas' buzz faded. Geese flew south in V formations, their calls echoing in the crisp autumn air. One day, Diana called. "Hey, old friend, where you up to?" Cole replied, "The usual grind. What's a busy GM like you doing calling a humble worker like me?" Diana's laughter was bright. "Cut the crap. Vanguard's modeling team is having its first official show. It's a big deal. Me and your two adopted sisters, Sophia and Talia, we're all formally inviting you, our great hero, to come and see the show. You have to be there." Cole smiled. "Wow, the big boss herself is calling to invite me? How could I refuse?" "I'll be there." Diana said, "Great. 2 days from now, at the Chicago Theater. 7 o'clock sharp. I'll meet you at the entrance. Don't be late." Cole replied, "You got it." July 1996, Chicago. The air was still warm. The lights of the Chicago Theater were dazzling. Chapter 11. The fashion show. The moment Cole stepped out his car, the three women were there to greet him. Diana was dressed in a sharp professional suit, while Sophia and Talia were flawlessly made up, looking like they had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. "Big brother," Sophia and Talia called out in unison, their smiles as bright as flowers. "Hey, glad you could make it," Diana said, patting his arm. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Sophia and Talia exchanged a look. "Brother, Diana, we have to go backstage and check on things. It's chaos back there." Go on, Diana nodded. The two women hurried inside, the sound of their high heels clicking on the pavement. Diana led Cole into the theater. The interior was magnificent, a symphony of gold leaf and velvet. The air smelled of perfume, old wood, and new carpet. The main stage was in the center, with a long runway extending into the audience. Diana led Cole to her seat in the front row, right next to the main aisle. As he sat down, he glanced around. The place was filled with important people. Business leaders in expensive suits, famous athletes he recognized from TV, movie stars. Everyone exuded an air of importance. The low hum of conversation was like being inside a giant beehive. Diana leaned over and whispered to him, "You see all this? Everyone talks about how beautiful the clothes are, how beautiful the models are. But nobody sees the chaos backstage." She gestured toward the back. "These girls, it hasn't been easy. In just 1 year, they've worked so hard. Basic performance skills, the catwalk, how to smile and cry for the camera, dance fundamentals." She ticked off the points on her fingers. How to do their makeup to be trendy, what to eat to maintain their figures, how to pose for cameras and video, how to brand themselves. It's an endless list. Underneath the glamorous facade, it's all built on hard work and discipline. They have to maintain their composure, endure the blinding lights, and master their craft. Cole nodded. "Yeah, it sounds tough." The house lights dimmed, leaving only a single, blindingly white spotlight on the T-shaped runway. The music started, a pulsing beat that made your heart pound in time with it. "Here they come." Diana's voice was tense with excitement. Sophia was the first one out, walking into the light. She was tall, confident, her gaze captivating. The clothes she wore shimmered under the lights. Then another model and another 20 young women, one after another, walked the runway. The click-clack, click of their high heels on the polished surface was perfectly in sync with the beat of the music. The air grew hot. The flashes of cameras went off like a continuous burst of lightning, warming your face. The music throbbed, making the floor vibrate. Swimsuits, a wave of vibrant, youthful energy. Evening gowns, a parade of colors and fabrics like living sculptures. Designer collections, avant-garde, outrageous, a feast for the eyes. The women moved back and forth on this river of light, like leaping flames, like restless shadows pinned by the spotlights. The buzz of the audience quieted, replaced by sharp intakes of breath, bursts of applause, and the occasional wolf whistle. After what seemed like an eternity, the music began to fade. The models, in a single file line, walked down from the runway and toward the front row. The scent of perfume and sweat was even stronger up close. They went down the line, giving each of the special guests a polite, air-kiss hug, their faces beaming. Then it was Cole's turn. Talia and Sophia, one on each side. They didn't go for the polite air kiss. Sophia wrapped her arms around one of Cole's arms, holding on tight. Talia did the same with the other. They both rested their heads on his shoulders. The hug was genuine and lasted for a long moment. The audience erupted. Applause, whistles, laughter, and cheers filled the theater, threatening to lift the roof. The warmth of their bodies, the faint scent of sweat, and a heady mix of perfumes assaulted Cole's senses. He was a little stunned, frozen in place. And with that volcanic eruption of noise, the show came to a dramatic end. The name Vanguard Models spread like wildfire through the industry. They were a sensation. Every major event wanted them. If you needed models, Vanguard was the first name that came to mind. At the national modeling competitions, their models consistently placed in the top 3. The trophies piled up. Sophia and Talia were given full-time positions at Diana's company, with all the benefits. Their lives were stable, and they started thinking about the future. They both started dating, and there was talk of wedding bells. October 1996. The Department of Commerce was holding a national conference on international engineering contracts at Seaway International's headquarters. Cole had an idea. He immediately thought of Diana's red-hot modeling team. "Old friend, can you do me a favor? Add a little excitement to our boring conference?" Diana agreed instantly. "Of course. It'll be great exposure for us, too." By now, Vanguard Models was considered one of the top agencies in the country. On a makeshift stage in the conference hall, the lights came on and the music started. 20 young women walked out, a dazzling display of youth and vitality. Their half-hour performance was a condensed version of their best work. The audience was made up of seasoned executives and government officials, people who had seen it all. The result? Thunderous applause. Round after round. People's hands were red from clapping. Cheers of bravo filled the hall. The atmosphere was electric. A modeling show at an engineering conference? It was unheard of. It was new. It was exciting. Seaway International looked brilliant for having organized it. The rest of the conference went off without a hitch. After the conference, Cole, on behalf of Seaway, hosted a dinner for the entire modeling team. Several tables were set up in the company cafeteria, laden with food. Cole, of course, sat with Diana, Talia, and Sophia. After a few drinks, Cole asked Diana, "How's business these days?" "Everything going smoothly." Diana took a bite of food and sighed. "On the surface, things are fine. We're busy, but it's a cutthroat industry. The moment one of our girls starts to make a name for herself, someone from another agency tries to poach her. The offers they make are insane." She glanced at Talia and Sophia. "They throw money at them, whisper sweet nothings in their ears, and a lot of the girls fall for it. They just pack up and leave, go straight to the competition. Except for these two," Diana said, pointing with her chopsticks. "They're unshakable, like rocks. The number of people who've tried to lure them away. My doorway is worn down from all the traffic." A look of pride crossed her face. "But our bond is strong. These two are loyal. They're sticking with me." And when the other agencies couldn't persuade them, they started playing dirty. Diana's voice dropped, laced with anger. "Sabotage. During a rehearsal last week, someone tampered with the equipment. It could have been a disaster. Someone could have been seriously hurt." Cole's brow furrowed. "Wow, that's low. This business is tougher than it looks. You ladies have it rough. If you ever run into that kind of trouble again, just give me a call. Don't worry about bothering me. If I can help, I will." His words had barely left his lips. Chapter 12. The matchmaking brawl. Talia and Sophia, from either side, leaned in toward Cole simultaneously, their eyes sparkling with mischievous humor. Talia spoke first, her voice a low, sweet purr. "Brother, you said it yourself. A duty to help. That's what a big brother is for, right?" Sophia cleverly jumped in. "Exactly. A big brother has to protect his little sisters for life. And we, in return, have to be close to our big brother, also for life." Sophia, getting bolder, winked at Cole. "That's right, brother. If you ever need anything, someone to run errands, cause a little trouble, or even keep you warm, you can count on us. We promise to do our best to keep you satisfied." The other models at the table giggled, covering their mouths. Those who knew their story were smiling knowingly. Cole felt a prickle of dread. Oh no, here we go again. And in front of all his colleagues from Seaway International, he opened his mouth, but no words came out. His face turned beet red, and all he could do was force a pained smile. He knew he was no match for these two in a battle of wits. If they were bold enough to start this here, what could he do? Nothing but sit there and take it. It's over. Cole knew with chilling certainty that from this day forward, the office gossip at Seaway would have fresh material. His scandalous love life would be the talk of the water cooler. And he was right. Cole Shaw is living the dream. He's got something going on with two supermodels. Maybe he's got them both wrapped around his little finger. The rumors spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of Seaway International. Even the general manager couldn't ignore it. He called Cole into his office. The door was closed. "So, tell me, Cole, what's going on?" "The rumors are getting pretty wild," the GM said, frowning, the light glinting off his glasses. Cole was cursing internally, but he managed a polite smile. He carefully explained the whole story, the heroic rescue at the nightclub, how he became their adopted brother, and how the two of them were just joking around at the dinner. The GM's frown lessened slightly, but he still said, "That's just your word. Look, write up a formal statement. Explain how you met, what happened, the whole thing. Sign it and leave it with me. It'll help shut people up." Cole had no choice but to comply. He quickly wrote 2 pages and signed his name. The whole affair, after a lot of turmoil, eventually died down. But unexpectedly, it had an inverse effect. Cole's name began to command a new level of respect throughout the company. He's got hidden depths. A real knight in shining armor. He does good deeds and doesn't look for praise. A true man. From the executives in the corner offices to the mailroom clerks, everyone secretly gave him a thumbs up. Cole Shaw was not only a skilled martial artist, but also a stand-up guy. His romantic entanglements, however, were another story. Diana's call came in, her voice sharp and urgent. "Cole Shaw, get over to my place now. Something's happened, and you're the only one who can handle it." Cole hung up and rushed over. Before he even reached the front door, he could hear the sound of heartbreaking sobs from inside. A knot of dread formed in his stomach. He pushed the door open. The atmosphere in the room was icy. Diana was sitting there, her eyes vacant, staring at Sophia. Cole's heart sank. Oh no, it's personal. He could handle any business crisis without batting an eye, but messy, emotional relationship problems? He dreaded them. He looked at Sophia. Her face was a mess of bruises, 2 black eyes staring back at him. The moment she saw him, Sophia let out a cry and threw herself into his arms, burying her face in his chest, her tears and snot soaking his shirt. Helpless, Cole gently patted her back, trying to comfort her. He glanced around for help. Talia was there, her long fingers gently touching the bruises on Sophia's face, her own tears streaming down her cheeks. "Brother," Talia said through her own sobs, "you're finally here. Please, you have to help Sophia. She didn't deserve this." Cole knew what was going on. These two were at that age where they were prone to drama and poor judgment. He looked to Diana for a more rational explanation. Diana wrung her hands, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Ugh, this is all my fault. I thought I was doing a good thing, setting them up with some guys. But they had to have their own criteria. They insisted the guys had to be tough, preferably the best of the best. So, I found a wrestler for Talia, Leo Zhou. He's a good kid, and they're getting along okay." She paused, glancing at the still sobbing Sophia. "For Sophia, I thought I'd keep in the family. I set her up with my nephew, Donovan Vance. He's a judo champion, competed internationally. He's over 6 feet tall, good-looking, and smart, but he has a bit of a temper. A real alpha male type. At first, they were fine, all lovey-dovey, but then they started fighting. The arguments got worse and worse. And then Donovan, that idiot, he lost control. He actually hit her. He did this to her face." Diana pointed at Sophia's bruised face, her own face a mask of regret. "I tried to talk to Donovan, but he's my nephew. If I'm too hard on him, it'll cause family problems. If I'm too soft, it won't do any good. Now, Sophia is demanding that you get revenge for her. I'm at my wit's end. That's why I called you. Cole understood. He frowned. Diana, old friend, you really know how to give me a headache. This was a domestic dispute, a messy, complicated situation. How was he supposed to get involved? Sophia was crying about revenge, but who knew if she was just angry or if she truly hated him? A young woman's heart was a mystery. What if he got involved, and then they made up and got back together? He would look like a fool, but he couldn't just let it go. An idea came to him. His eyes narrowed. He feigned a look of pure rage and slammed his hand down on the corner of a solid wood table. Crack! The corner of the table snapped off cleanly and fell to the floor. The three women were stunned into silence. The crying stopped, the tears forgotten. They stared at Cole as if he were a monster. That was the effect he was looking for. His gaze was as sharp as a knife as he looked at the three of them, his voice as cold as ice. He dared to hit my sister? You got a death wish. Sophia, let's go. Take me to this Donovan Vance. You tell me, do you want his arm or his leg? I'll break it for you right now and hand it to you. Chapter 13. A purposeful challenge. Sophia, who had been sobbing uncontrollably, was stunned into silence. What? I don't want his arm or his leg. I'm just so angry. If he dares to hit me now, what will happen if we get married? Will I be his personal punching bag? Diana, a seasoned veteran of life's dramas, immediately understood Cole's strategy. He had skillfully maneuvered Sophia into revealing her true feelings. This wasn't about revenge. It was a mix of anger, fear, and a lingering affection. She quickly played along. That's right. Cole's right. Let's go. I'll take you to that little punk. He messed with my hero's sister. He's asking for it. I don't care if he's a judo champion. To a real master, he's just a monkey. We'll teach him a lesson. Get justice for Sophia. She made a move as if to leave. Sophia, panicked, grabbed Diana's arm. No, Diana, don't go. Diana, now certain of her feelings, pressed on. Why not? Sophia, don't you want to see your brother and Donovan go at it? See who's the better fighter? Talia, who had been quiet until now, caught on. Always up for some drama. She chimed in. A fight. They have to fight. Brother, I bet you can take him down in one move. Her voice was bright and cheerful, fanning the flames. Diana added, I bet on my hero too. Cole saw that the plan was working. Sophia's attention was now completely diverted. He added more fuel to the fire, frowning thoughtfully. You two have so much faith in me. Donovan is in his prime, a professional judo fighter. He's not going to be easy. Sophia, her young mind now consumed with the idea of a fight, blurted out, a fight it is. By judo rules. And I bet Donovan will win. Cole hid a smile, his face growing even more serious. All right, so we have a bet. Two of you bet on me, one on him. Here's the deal. I'll fight him by his own rules, judo rules. And I'll bet you all I can win in under 3 moves. Who takes that bet? Diana, understanding the game, raised her hand. I bet on you, hero. 3 moves or less. Talia, ever the contrarian, jumped in. 3 moves? Brother, no offense, but Donovan has been doing this his whole life. He's a pro. 3 moves? No way. I bet on Donovan. Sophia, now completely caught up in the excitement, yelled, I bet on Donovan too. Diana didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone and called Donovan, her voice loud and dramatic. Hello, Donovan. There's a guy here, Cole Shaw, a martial artist. He's challenging you to a judo match. By the rules. He says he can beat you in under 3 moves. What do you say? Are you man enough to take the challenge? On the other end of the line, Donovan, a hot-headed young man, heard the challenge. Someone was disrespecting his skills? His pride was wounded. He roared into the phone. Who? Tell him to wait for me. If he's got the guts, tell him not to run. I'll be right there. We'll see who goes down in 3 moves. After hanging up, they all headed to the agreed-upon location. On the way, Cole, wanting to keep Sophia's mind off revenge, turned to Talia. Talia, that wrestler boyfriend of yours, does he do American style or the international kind? Talia, still thinking about the upcoming fight, answered casually. Leo, he's a Greco-Roman wrestler. He placed in the top 8 at the World Championships. Oh, top 8 in the world. Cole raised an eyebrow, feigning a look of challenge. Maybe I should take him on sometime. Who do you think would win? Talia's eyes lit up. Oh, brother, you want to challenge Leo? All right, I'll ask him, see if he's interested, she said, a hint of pride in her voice. Cole scoffed. He thinks he's too good for me? Tell him I'll beat him at his own game, by Greco-Roman rules. I bet he'll take the challenge. Wow, brother, you're really talking big now. Talia's eyes were shining. Challenging a professional? You're one of a kind. I'll be cheering for you, as I watch Leo throw you around like a rag doll. Ha ha ha. Sophia, listening to their banter, couldn't help but laugh, the tear tracks still visible on her face. Brother, you're something else. Are you trying to take on both of our boyfriends? What's your game? Are you trying to get rid of them, so you can have us all to yourself? She said, her tone teasing. Talia immediately joined in. Exactly. If that's what you want, brother, you should have just said so. We'll take good care of you, make you comfortable, be at your beck and call, she said with a wicked grin. Cole felt his skin crawl. He waved his hands, his face turning pale. All right, enough. You two are at it again. I give up. You win. I can't handle you two. Diana, watching Cole get cornered by the two young women, was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. Cole, I have to say, these two have had a crush on you for a long time. If I were you, I would have made my move ages ago. Your hesitation doesn't fit your hero persona. Are you all talk and no action? Cole was speechless, rolling his eyes. He groaned internally. These two, plus Diana, egging them on, were more formidable than a dozen Donovans. Cole shot back. Diana, old friend, that's not fair. You're the one who brought us all together. You have to be impartial. He grinned mischievously. How about this? You go first. Show me how it's done. Talia and Sophia looked at Diana's flustered expression and burst out laughing. The laughter was contagious, filling the car. When they arrived at Donovan's dojo, their group immediately became the center of attention. Donovan, ever the showman, announced to everyone, "See this guy? A so-called Chinese martial arts master. He's challenging me. Says he can take me, a judo champion, down in 3 moves." His words were like a lit match in a room full of gasoline. A crowd instantly formed around the main mat. 3 or 4 people deep, a sea of cell phones held high, ready to capture the main event. Donovan had heard from Sophia about her highly skilled brother, but he had always been skeptical of traditional martial arts, considering them to be all show and no substance. When Sophia had run off in tears, he had felt a pang of regret. He never meant to hurt her. Chapter 14. Leveling the playing field, but his pride had gotten in the way. In front of everyone, he couldn't bring himself to apologize. So when Diana had called and demanded he apologize to Sophia, he had come up with a clever deflection. Fine. We'll settle this after the match. If I win, I'll apologize. Cole put on a judo gi and stepped onto the mat. To be fair, we'll follow judo rules. Best 2 out of 3. Donovan changed as well, and they had 2 referees officiate. The 2 men faced each other. The referee gave the signal. Donovan lunged like a panther, trying to get his arm around Cole's back for a hip throw. But the moment his arm touched Cole's back, he felt a subtle force redirecting his own momentum. Suddenly, he was flying through the air, landing hard on the mat with a dull thud. The first round, 5 minutes long, was a blur for Donovan. Every time he tried to make a move, the moment he touched Cole's GI, he would find himself sailing through the air. It was uncanny, like something out of legend. Cole won the first round easily. In the second round, Donovan was more cautious. He decided to try a sacrifice technique, throwing himself to the mat to bring his opponent down with him. But as soon as he grabbed Cole's lapels, Cole twisted his wrists, and Donovan's grip slipped. Cole then dropped low and spun, appearing at Donovan's side. Donovan found himself on his back, his hands empty. From then on, every move Donovan made was effortlessly neutralized by Cole. The second round was over before he knew it. 0-2. There was no need for a third round. Donovan had never encountered anyone like Cole. He was thoroughly defeated, but also deeply impressed. He looked at Cole with a newfound respect. "Brother," he said, grabbing Cole's arm, "we have to go over that. You have to teach me." Cole ignored him and nodded towards Sophia, his voice low and cold. "First, tell me why you hurt my sister. If you can't give me a good reason, if you can't make it right with her, I'll make sure you can't get out of bed for 6 months." Donovan's face went pale. He rushed over to Sophia and dropped to one knee. Sophia, I was a jerk. The moment I hit you, I regretted it, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But my stupid pride, it kept me from coming after you and apologizing. Please forgive me. I swear I'll change. I'll control my temper. I just want to spend the rest of my life with you. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and disinfectant. His voice was choked with emotion. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. She didn't speak. She just cupped his face in her hands and pressed her tear-streaked lips to his. Cole, Talia, and Diana applauded. The crowd of spectators joined in, the sound of their clapping echoing through the dojo. Cole left the lovebirds to their reconciliation and, with Talia and Diana in tow, left the dojo. The cool night air was a welcome relief. In the car, Cole turned to Talia. Talia, let's not waste any time. Call your boyfriend. I'm going to go take care of him right now. Talia laughed, tilting her head. Oh, brother, in such a hurry? Are you trying to start something with me? Cole rolled his eyes. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm just leveling the playing field. I don't want you two accusing me of playing favorites later. Diana, in the back seat, was thoroughly amused. She pulled out her phone. All right, hero, I get it. Meticulous as always. I'll make the call to Mr. Leo Zhou and arrange the fight. Cole slapped the steering wheel. That's my old friend. Always on the same page. Cole's match with Leo Zhou also consisted of 2 rounds. It was clean, quick, and decisive. Leo was also defeated. After these 2 fights, Talia's and Sophia's families became very close with Cole. When they both got married, Cole and Diana were the witnesses at their weddings. The families remained close friends for the rest of their lives. The years passed like a flowing river. Another spring arrived, the air carrying a hint of warmth, the willow trees sprouting new leaves, and the sparrows returning to their nests. One day, Cole's phone rang. It was Diana. Her voice was sharp and panicked. Cole Shaw, get over here as fast as you can. Something terrible has happened. A cold dread washed over Cole. Diana was usually unshakable. If she was calling him in a panic, it had to be serious. Diana, he said, his voice low and steady. Meet me at the Tea Leaf, a tea house in Hyde Park. It's a friend's place. I'll be there as soon as I can. The line went dead. He floored it, racing to the tea house. When he pushed open the door to the private room, Diana was already there. The room smelled of old, musty tea leaves. Diana looked like she had been through hell. Her face was sallow, her eyes sunken, and her fingers were twisting together so tightly her knuckles were white. It was clear she hadn't slept in days. When she saw Cole, she looked as if she had just seen a lifeline. Her voice trembled. Sophia and Talia. They've been taken. It's been 2 days. We have to get them back. It turned out that their Vanguard modeling team had become so successful that they had put a lot of competitors out of business. Someone from a rival team, with connections to the criminal underworld, had set a trap. They had paid a couple of up-and-coming models to lure Sophia and Talia to a negotiation. When they arrived, they were kidnapped. At first, Diana wasn't worried. Business deals could take time. But as the day turned to night and there was still no word from them, a knot of dread formed in her stomach. Something was wrong. The next day, Diana was frantic, making calls, trying to find them, but there was no news. 2 days passed without a word. She was about to call the police when an unknown number called her. A low, gravelly male voice on the other end said, Diana Vance? This is she, Diana said, her hand gripping the phone, her palms sweating. Sophia Quinn and Talia Hayes are with us, the voice said, cold as ice. Get $5 million. Cash. When you have it, call this number. We'll tell you where to drop it off. We get the money, you get them back. There was a pause, the voice growing even colder. Call the cops? They're dead. The man's voice was like a block of ice in Diana's ear. $62,000. 3 days, the voice said, its tone leaving no room for negotiation. In your modeling team, for the next 10 years, don't even think about showing your faces in Chicago. You show up once, we invite one of your girls for a chat. Understand? Diana's throat was dry. 60,000? That was all the liquid cash the company had. 10 years? That was a death sentence for the team. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice from shaking. All right, I'll do it. But 60,000 isn't a small amount. It'll take me a few days to get it together. When I have it, I'll give it to you all at once. Chapter 15. The twin jewels kidnapped, fine. Remember the rules, the icy voice said before hanging up. A cold sweat broke out on Diana's back. She immediately reported the situation to her superiors. Their response was simple: stall for time while they tried to figure out a way to get the women back. Get them back. Diana's mind was a blank. She sat there, her fingers drumming on the table, a nervous rhythm that grated on her own nerves. Suddenly, a name popped in her head: Cole Shaw. That's it. I'll call him. He was a man of the world. He might have a way. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number. After hearing her story, Cole's voice was as heavy as a stone. Have you called the police? I can't, Diana said, her voice frantic. They said if I did, the girls wouldn't see another sunrise. I'm out of options, that's why I called you. Please, give me some advice. How do we get them back? The reason I had you meet me here is so those guys don't know I'm involved, Cole said. First, I'll have some friends of mine look into it, see which crew in Chicago is behind this, where their hideout is, and where the girls are being held. As for the police, I have a contact there. I'll handle that. He continued, just focus on getting the money together. Make a big show of it, so they think you're busy. I have a feeling there's a mole in your company. He paused. I'm leaving now. I should have some news in a couple of days. Get a new, untraceable phone and call me in 2 days. Give me the number. Diana quickly gave him the kidnapper's number. Cole wrote it down and left without another word. Cole didn't waste any time. The first person he called was Sid Keller. Sid's network was like a spider web, with contacts in every corner of the city. He could get information fast. Next, he called Sammy, the suit Costello. Sammy was officially retired, spending his days drinking tea and raising canaries, but he still had his ear to the ground in the criminal underworld. Finding out information for him was as easy as counting the ants in his own backyard. Finally, he went to see Detective Nash. Nash was a detective with the Chicago PD, and his precinct covered the area where the modeling agency was located. Nash's office smelled of stale cigarette smoke and old newspapers. Cole laid out the whole story, including the kidnapper's phone number. Nash sucked his teeth, his brow furrowed. This is messy. Without a formal complaint from a victim, we can't open a case. And if we do, it'll be a major case. It'll have to go up to the city level. He lowered his voice. But for these guys to be so brazen, kidnapping, extortion, and that 10-year ban, I'm betting they have someone on the inside in the department. For the girls' safety, we have to do this off the books. You use your connections to find them. Once you do, we'll stage a citizen's tip, a raid, and hit them when they least expect it. Cole nodded. That's what I was thinking. My people are already on it. It shouldn't be long. Once we have a location, we'll meet again and plan the raid. For now, the fewer people who know, the better. We can't risk a leak. Done. Nash slapped his thigh. Let's move. Information started trickling in. A gang on the south side called the Dragon Syndicate. The leader was a man named Lars Bishop. Bishop used to work for Sammy Costello's younger brother. After Sammy had a falling out with his other brother, he retired. The two younger brothers also went their separate ways. Bishop saw his chance and started his own crew. He eventually made a connection with a powerful figure, and together they took over the old territory, becoming a major player. Bishop had eyes and ears all over the city, and more disturbingly, there were rumors of a police connection. No wonder he was so bold. Where are the girls being held? Sid Keller's information was the fastest and most accurate. A villa in a new development out in Will County. About a dozen men were there, guarding the two women. Nash's investigation had also turned up a lead. 2 people within Vanguard were under suspicion. He was investigating them discreetly. Cole and Nash met again and came up with a plan. Nash would continue to investigate the moles and prepare his team. Cole would scout out the villa first. As soon as he confirmed that Sophia and Talia were there, the citywide raid would commence. Just as he was thinking, Diana called from her new number. Mr. Shaw, any news? She asked, her voice tense. We have a location, a villa in the suburbs, Cole said, his voice calm. Once we have final confirmation, we'll move in and rescue them. You just keep stalling the contact. And make a big show of gathering the money. Understood. Diana's voice was filled with relief. After hanging up, Cole thought of someone, Max Fisher. Among his master's apprentices, Max was the most dedicated, the most skilled. He had the potential to become a true master. Cole had been mentoring him for a while. It was time to see what he was made of. Cole called Max to the training gym. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and dust. Max, Cole said, his voice low, have you ever thought about what you'd do if you were surrounded by a dozen guys with machetes? Max's eyes lit up, his posture straightening. Uncle Cole, I have. I'd carry a steel pipe. If a fight broke out, I'd aim for their wrists. Once they drop their weapons, they're easy to deal with. Good thinking, Cole nodded. Have you ever actually been in that situation? No, Max said, rubbing his hands together excitedly. But I'd love to try. Cole looked at him, his gaze as sharp as a hawk's. Listen, if you ever are, remember two things. First, our style of martial arts is about defense and counterattack. But in that situation, you have to be the aggressor. Don't wait. And don't just aim for the wrists. Elbows, shoulders, anywhere you can disable their weapon arm, you hit it. He paused, his voice growing deeper. Second, be fast. Be unpredictable. Keep them off balance. Ideally, you want to disarm most of them before they even know what's happening. Max listened intently, his eyes wide. Then, Cole's lips twitched into something resembling a smile. The few who are still armed become your primary targets. Not only do you have to disarm them, you have to take them down completely. As for the rest, he grunted, you can talk to them however you like. Muck sucked in a breath. Uncle Cole, you've actually done this? A few times, Cole said, his tone as casual as if he were talking about what he had for breakfast. Want to try? For real. Max's chest puffed out, his youthful bravado on full display. Yes, absolutely. Uncle Cole, I'd follow you into a volcano. It's not that dramatic, Cole said, pulling something out of an old canvas bag. It was a dark, heavy, foot-long steel ruler. Chapter 16. Scouting the Dragon's Den. There's an opportunity right now. 2 women have been kidnapped. We have to get them out. Just the 2 of us. You in? I'm in. Max's reply was instantaneous, his eyes fixed on the steel ruler, as if it were a T-bone steak. Good, Cole said, tossing the ruler to him. Max caught it. It was cold and heavy in his hand, the sharp edges digging into his palm, the faint smell of iron filling his nostrils. Take this. Get used to it. Make an extension of your own hand. When you're comfortable with it, we'll go rescue them. Max gripped the ruler so tightly his knuckles turned white. The cold of the steel seemed to travel up his arm and into his chest, where fire was burning. He licked his dry lips and nodded firmly. Cole gave Max a spare iron ruler. Max weighed it in his hand, his eyes widening. Mr. Shaw, the iron ruler from a few years ago. That was you, wasn't it? His hand trembled slightly, the cold steel a heavy weight. Yeah, Cole said, a single word of confirmation. Max slapped his thigh, nearly jumping with excitement. Man, if I'd known it was you, I would have joined you in a heartbeat. Fighting bad guys, that's the stuff. He was like a kid who had just been given a new toy. The next day, the sky was a hazy white, the sun weak, the wind lazy. The new leaves on the trees looked listless. The air smelled of fresh dirt and concrete. Cole drove, with Max in the passenger seat, to a new villa development on the south side of the city. The area was spacious, the roads wide, the trees planted in perfect rows. It was eerily quiet, the only sound the rustling of a plastic bag caught in the wind. They parked in a secluded spot, changed into gray-blue work coveralls, and walked to Villa number 8. Cole rang the doorbell. The sound was muffled, as if coming from behind a thick wall. The door opened a crack, and a man with a buzz cut and a neck as thick as a tree trunk peered out. What do you want? He grunted, his voice rough. Max cleared his throat, trying to sound official. We're from the Homeowners Association. We've received a complaint. Said you guys are making too much noise at night, keeping the neighbors up. We're just asking you to keep it down, especially late at night. A complaint? The man roared, spittle flying. Which one of those sons of bitches snitched? Tell him to come over here himself. I'll knock his teeth out. Max flinched, but Cole stepped forward, shielding him slightly. Watch your mouth. Are you threatening us? Hey, you 2 pencil pushers from the HOA are sticking up for those whiners? The man growled, his anger rising. From inside, the sound of loud voices grew closer, and 7 more men appeared at the door. The one in the lead, a middle-aged man in a vest, had a fleshy, smiling face. What's all the commotion, Manny? He asked, his voice deceptively soft. The big man, Manny, pointed at Cole and Max. Tony, these 2 from the HOA say we're being too loud at night. Someone complained. The man called Tony turned his smiling face to Cole and Max, nodding slightly. Sorry about that, gentlemen. My friend here is a hothead, short fuse. He clasped his hands together. I apologize on his behalf. We'd just like to get together and play some cards. Maybe we got a little carried away. We understand disturbing the peace is wrong. From now on, we'll be as quiet as mice. How does that sound? Max was about to say something, but Cole pulled his arm. Fine, you've been warned. Don't make us come back. He turned and walked away. Max hurried to catch up, his legs still a little shaky. That night, the sky was as dark as ink. The moon was a faint, hazy sliver. The neighborhood was dead silent, except for the chirping of crickets, an unnerving sound in the darkness. Most of the villas were dark, like tombs. Only one had a dim, yellow light on in a window. Two dark figures emerged from the shadows, one tall, one shorter, both dressed in black. Cole patted Max's shoulder, his voice a whisper. Stay here. Keep watch. Don't move. Max nodded, his throat tight, his palms sweating. Cole, as silent as a cat, used a pile of debris to vault himself onto the second-floor balcony. He pressed himself against the wall and listened. The acrid smell of stale cigarette smoke wafted from a crack in the window. A man with a whiny voice was talking. Tony, those two chicks, man. They're incredible. Their bodies, their faces, their skin. Just looking at them drives me crazy. But you won't let us touch them. What's the deal? Tony's voice was slow and measured. You idiot. The boss has his eye on those two. Things are hot right now. We have to wait for him to have his fun before we get our turn. He spat. The whiny voice grew more desperate. Come on. Two gorgeous women. Right here, and we can't even touch them? It's torture. Tony, I can't take it anymore. I have to go find a girl tonight, blow off some steam. Shut up. Tony's voice hardened. The boss said, no strangers allowed. If there's a leak, it's your ass. The whiny voice pleaded. Then tomorrow. I'll go to town tomorrow. Please don't stop me. If you do, I'm afraid I'll lose control and go upstairs myself. And then who knows what I'll say. Tony was silent for a moment, then sighed. Fine. Go tomorrow. But don't cause any trouble. You hear me? I hear you. Thanks, Tony. The whiny voice was suddenly cheerful. Cole moved to another window and listened, counting the voices. Finally, he peered through a crack in a third window. There they were, Sophia and Talia. They were huddled in a corner, their hands and feet bound with zip ties, the plastic cutting into their skin. Thankfully, they were still fully clothed. A small measure of relief washed over Cole. He had what he needed. He slipped down from the balcony and signaled to Max. They disappeared as silently as they had come. Back in a safe location, Cole immediately called Detective Nash. Nash, we found them. A villa in a new development in Will County. The models are okay for now. They're tied up. 10 guys inside. There's a beat-up van parked out front. Tomorrow, one of them, a guy named Manny, is going to a brothel in town. Have your men pick him up, make him talk. Max and I will keep an eye on the place. Nash's reply was a single word. Done. Chapter 17. Rescuing the hostages the next evening, Manny swaggered out of the villa development and headed for a shabby-looking massage parlor with a pink neon sign on the main street of a nearby town. He went inside, picked out the most provocative-looking woman, and quickly disappeared into a back room. He had barely pulled up his pants when several plainclothes officers burst in. Soliciting a prostitute? They had him dead to rights. Manny was hauled off to the local police station. The guy was a coward. He broke in under 2 hours. The harsh light of the interrogation room, combined with the threat of a long prison sentence, was enough to make him sing like a canary. He spilled everything. The Dragon Syndicate's operations, the location of the hostages, his boss's connections, everything. Nash called Cole. 3 words, it's a go. Cole and Nash quickly finalized the plan. They would move tonight. Cole and Max would rescue the hostages, and Nash's team would provide backup and execute a citywide raid on all of the syndicate's known locations the moment the hostages were secure. As darkness fell, Cole and Max returned to the villa. Cole positioned Max in the shadows near the entrance. Listen, Max. First time in the field, don't panic. You have one job. Watch this door. If anyone comes out, and it's not the girls, let them go. Your only priority is to make sure they don't get the girls out. Hostage safety is paramount. Got it? Max nodded, his hand gripping the steel ruler so tightly his knuckles were white. Cole, with a final instruction, vaulted up to the second floor. The window to the room where the girls were being held was nailed shut. He pried open the window to the adjacent room and slipped inside. The room smelled of stale sweat. Perfect timing. One of the guards was dozing against the wall, and the other was in the bathroom. Cole moved like a phantom. A swift chop to the side of the sleeping guard's neck, and the man crumpled to the floor without a sound. Cole then moved to the bathroom door. The moment it opened, the second guard, still fumbling with his pants, was met with a swift, silent end to his consciousness. Suddenly, the landline phone downstairs started ringing, a shrill, piercing sound. Tony's voice, a distorted roar, echoed through the house. "What? The cops are onto us. Damn it. I know. Get out of there. Now!" Tony screamed. "Everyone get up. The cops are coming. Let's go. Psycho. You and two others, get the van started. The rest of you with me. Upstairs. Get the girls." The sound of pounding feet on the stairs grew louder, heading straight for the room where the girls were being held. Cole's heart pounded. No time. He sent a quick text to Nash and then kicked the locked door with all his might. Crash. The door flew off its hinges, with splinters flying everywhere. Inside, Sophia and Talia, who had been huddled together in fear, looked up to see Cole standing in the doorway like a vengeful god. "Cole!" They both cried, tears streaming down their faces. Cole rushed in, a small knife appearing in his hand. With two quick slashes, he cut the zip ties on their hands and feet. No time for tears. "Follow me. We're getting out of here." His voice was urgent and low. He pulled them to their feet, positioning himself between them and the door, and charged out. At that same moment, the city erupted. Police sirens wailed from multiple directions. Nash's net had closed, except for the top leaders of the Dragon Syndicate, who had been tipped off and had managed to escape. Every last member of the gang was rounded up. The hallway was a scene of chaos. 5 men with machetes were charging up the stairs. When they saw their unconscious comrades, they knew what had happened. "The hostages are escaping. Stop them." Someone yelled. The 5 men, crowded in the narrow hallway, swung their machetes wildly. They rounded a corner and came face to face with Cole, who was shielding the 2 women. Tony, in the lead, his eyes red with fury, pointed his machete at Cole. "Who the hell are you? You think you can mess with us and get away with it? You're not going anywhere." The men behind him charged forward. The hallway was so narrow that 2 people could barely stand side by side, let alone swing a machete. The cramped space, however, played to Cole's advantage. "Get back." Against the wall, Cole pushed Sophia and Talia behind him. He stood his ground in the middle of the hallway, a human shield. Tony and another man in the lead let out a guttural roar, the machetes slicing through the air. Cole moved. He was a blur of motion, lunging at the first man. The steel ruler flashed. Clang! A sickening crunch of bone, and the machete clattered to the floor. A swift palm strike to the man's chest sent him flying backward, knocking over 2 of his companions. Only Tony was left standing at the top of the stairs. He let out a furious cry and charged, his machete aimed at Cole's heart. Cole deflected the blade with his ruler, the sound of scraping metal echoing in the narrow space. As Tony stumbled, Cole dropped low and brought the ruler up in a powerful arc, knocking the machete out of Tony's hand. The opening was all he needed. He drove his elbow into Tony's chest. A spray of blood erupted from Tony's mouth, spattering Cole's shirt. Tony's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. The men who had been knocked down were getting back to their feet, their eyes filled with a renewed ferocity. Cole's ruler was a blur, disarming 2 more of them. He then brought the ruler down on one of their heads, and the man dropped without a sound. The third man, wielding 2 machetes, spun like a top, a whirlwind of flashing blades. Cole, with a flick of his foot, sent a fallen machete flying into the air, catching it and throwing it at the spinning man. The man, caught off guard, crossed his blades to block the attack. In that split second, Cole was on him, the ruler striking his wrist, disarming him. The last 2 men were frozen in terror. This wasn't a man, it was a demon. Chapter 18. A coordinated strike in a desperate move. They both threw their machetes at Cole and turned to run down the stairs. Cole deflected one with his ruler, the other whistling past his ear and embedding itself in the wall. He was on them in a flash. A swift strike of the ruler, and one was down. Another 2 steps, another strike, and the second was down. He had learned to control his strength. He would knock them out, not maim them, unless it was a life-or-death situation. But in the chaos of a brawl, it was hard to gauge the right amount of force. He reached the top of the stairs just as the last man was scrambling down. A quick trip of his foot, and the man went tumbling down the stairs, landing in a heap at the bottom. "Aya!" A blood-curdling scream from behind him. Cole spun around. Damn it! Tony, the bleeding man, was back on his feet. While Cole was dealing with the others, Tony had managed to get up, and, as a terrified Talia was passing him, had chopped the back of her neck with the side of his hand. Ugh! Talia let out a soft groan and collapsed. Tony, covered in blood, now had Sophia in a chokehold, the cold blade of a fallen machete pressed against her throat. He was breathing heavily, blood frothing at his lips. He stared at Cole, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Let me go, or I'll take her with me." Cole's heart sank. He had miscalculated. He kept his voice calm. "All right, let's talk. You let her go, and I'll let you walk. I give you my word." His eyes were fixed on the hand holding the knife. On the floor, Talia's eyelids fluttered. She opened her eyes to the horrifying scene. Her heart leaped in her throat. Her eyes darted to the side, and she saw a machete lying on the floor. A primal instinct for survival took over. She bit her lip, ignoring the searing pain in her neck, and slowly reached for the weapon. She got to her feet, her movements slow and deliberate. Tony, his attention focused entirely on Cole, didn't notice. Talia raised the heavy blade. With a surge of adrenaline, she brought it down on Tony's knife arm. Tony let out an inhuman scream, blood spraying from his arm. The machete clattered to the floor. That was the moment Cole had been waiting for. He lunged forward like a coiled spring. The steel ruler whistled through the air, connecting with the back of Tony's head. Tony's scream was cut short. He collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Cole quickly pulled out his phone and sent a text to Nash and Diana. "Got them." Sophia's legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. Talia rushed to her side. The 2 women, safe at last, burst into tears, clinging to Cole, their sobs echoing in the now silent house. The raw emotion of their terror and relief was overwhelming. Cole stood stiffly, a pillar of strength, as they soaked his shirt with their tears. When their sobs subsided, he gently helped them to their feet. "Let's go. Let's get out of this hellhole." Downstairs, at the villa's entrance, the 3 men who had tried to escape were met with a surprise. Their van's tires were flat. Max stood at the gate, the steel ruler in his hand, blocking their path. Panic-stricken, the 3 men charged at Max, their machetes swinging. Max, remembering Cole's words, didn't retreat. He met their charge, his ruler a blur of motion, disarming 2 of them. But he was inexperienced. The 3rd blade slipped past his guard, aimed at his shoulder. He dodged at the last second, the blade slicing through his shirt. He retaliated with a swift strike to the man's head, and the man dropped. Another of the disarmed men tried to flee into a dark alley. "Freeze!" a voice yelled, and suddenly, the area was flooded with police officers. The wail of sirens filled the night. The 3 men were quickly apprehended. The other officers stormed the villa, just as Cole was helping the 2 shaken women down the stairs. The police took over, and an ambulance, which had been waiting nearby, rushed the 2 women to the hospital. The heroes on the floor were handcuffed and loaded into police vans. In the police car, on the way to the station, Max, his adrenaline still pumping, was flushed with excitement. "Uncle Cole, that was incredible. Next time, you have to take me with you. Fighting with you is the best training ever." Cole looked at him, his voice low and serious. "Not a word of this to anyone, not even your master." Max, after a moment of surprise, understood. "Right, the anonymous hero. I get it." "Exactly," Cole said, clapping him on the shoulder. "This isn't a game. If those guys knew it was us, the ones who got away might come after our families. Safety first. We have to protect ourselves if we want to keep doing this." At the station, after a long debriefing, Nash clapped Cole on the shoulder. "You're a hero. We have to commend you. Send a plaque to your workplace." Cole quickly shook his head. No, Captain. Please don't. And don't mention our names in the report. Just say it was a joint effort between the police and some concerned citizens. The credit belongs to everyone. Max nodded in agreement. Nash and the other officers, looking at the dozen or so dangerous criminals who had been single-handedly taken down, were filled with a new level of respect for these two men. This kind of skill was rare. They knew they had made some valuable friends. Nash, respecting their wishes, wrote in his report, "Through the close cooperation of the Chicago Police Department and the citizens of Chicago, the location of the hostages was determined, and all kidnappers were apprehended, resulting in the safe rescue of the hostages." Chapter 19. Rewarding the heroes, the names Cole Shaw and Max Fisher vanished from the official record. Diana's offer to send a letter of commendation to their workplaces was also politely but firmly refused. She did, however, give them each a thick envelope of cash as a thank you. Cole accepted it and distributed the money among his informants, with the largest shares going to Sid Keller and Sammy Costello. Sophia and Talia, after being released from the hospital, also tried to give them a bonus, but it was laughingly refused. The kidnapping of two famous models was a major news story, and the city was in an uproar. The Dragon Syndicate's operations were thoroughly investigated. The powerful figure behind them was soon invited for a chat with the authorities and ended up with a long prison sentence. A few weeks later, Lars Bishop, the leader of the syndicate, was apprehended in another state. The mole in Vanguard was fired, and anyone else with connections to the gang was dealt with accordingly. The rival modeling agency was hit with a massive fine and eventually went out of business. The following February, Detective Nash was awarded a medal for his service and promoted to captain of the homicide division. The other officers involved in the raid also received commendations. Sophia and Talia, once they had recovered, hosted a large dinner at a famous Chicago restaurant for all the police officers involved in their rescue. Diana, on behalf of her company, gave each officer a generous cash gift and expressed her eternal gratitude. A smaller, more private dinner was held later. Diana, Sophia, and Talia invited Cole and Max to a quiet, elegant private room. "Cole, Mux." Sophia's eyes were red-rimmed. "Saving our lives? I don't know how to thank you." She threw her arms around Cole in a long, tight hug. Talia did the same with Max. Both women also planted a kiss on their cheeks. Max's face turned a deep shade of red. The atmosphere was warm and intimate. Sophia, holding a glass of wine, stood next to Cole, her eyes shining, her voice playful. "Cole, you saved my life. I have nothing to give you in return." She sighed dramatically. "I should just offer myself to you. Tell me honestly, brother, am I beautiful?" She leaned in closer, her eyelashes fluttering. Cole nearly choked on his wine. "Beautiful? Of course you're beautiful. If you two aren't beautiful, then no one in Chicago is." Sophia pressed on, half joking, half serious. "So, a great beauty for a great hero. What do you think? A good match?" She winked. "Stop it." Cole shook his head. "I can't. If your aunt found out, she'd chase me down the street with a rolling pin." Talia, munching on sunflower seeds, added, "It's a cruel world. Our hero is already taken by a goddess. He has no time for us common flowers." Cole laughed, playing along. "Hey, you two are about to get married. You should watch what you say. If your fiancés heard you, they'd come after me with a meat cleaver. And then what? I'd have to beat them up, and they'd be laid up in bed. Then you two would be crying and blaming me. I can't win." His words made everyone laugh. Diana, raising her glass, said, all right, that's enough teasing. We have another hero here. You two are both throwing yourselves at Cole. What about poor Max? Is he just supposed to watch?" Talia turned to the still blushing Max and gave him a sultry look. "What's to worry about? We'll just have to share. 2 women for 2 men. What do you say, Max? We'll take good care of you." Max looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. No, Em. I can't," he stammered. Diana roared with laughter. "Look, you're going to make the poor boy faint." After the dinner, as they were walking in the cool night air, Max's face finally returned to its normal color. "Uncle Cole, those models there, they're wild. They'll say anything." My heart was pounding out of my chest. Cole, an unlit cigarette dangling from his lips, chuckled. "You're too thin-skinned. They're just having fun, blowing off steam. They don't mean it. Just remember, with women like that, you have to know your boundaries. Be friendly, but respectful. Then they'll trust you, and they'll open up to you. He clapped Max on the shoulder. Your generation is a lot more open than mine. You'll run into situations like this again. Just remember what I taught you tonight. It'll keep you out of trouble. He paused, looking at the glittering lights of the city, his voice growing more serious. The world is a complicated place these days. People are unpredictable. But in this life, when you see a wrong, you have to make it right. You help your friends, and you fight your enemies. That's the code of the modern-day knight. He glanced at Max, and one day, you might meet a woman who is completely devoted to you. You have to know how to handle that, how to treat her right. Don't take her for granted, and don't betray your own conscience. Max nodded, his eyes shining. I will, Uncle Cole. I'll be a modern-day knight, just like you. Good, Cole said, nodding in satisfaction. And the first rule of being a knight is protecting your own family. If your home is secure, then you can go out and fight for justice. The reason I do what I do, and I don't look for praise, is so that my wife can sleep soundly at night, and my daughter can go to school without fear. Understand? I understand, Max said, his voice firm. Not long after, the legend of the Iron Ruler began to spread through the darker corners of Chicago once more. Sometimes it was one man, a fleeting shadow. Other times, it was two, like a pair of branding irons. Wherever there was injustice, the shadow of the ruler would appear, a silent guardian, a dispenser of a rough, but necessary, justice.